My entitled weird neighbors went on my property and installed a public pantry on my lawn, marking one of the most frustrating times in my entire life, as random people would just drive up to my house at all hours of the night to either take stuff out of this pantry or put stuff in there, disturbing me and my kids in the process. So I got some revenge by putting it on their property, and now they're freaking out, crying on Facebook about how I'm a heartless monster and that I hate charity. And at this point, I really just don't know what to do. Welcome back to Am I the Jerk, where we get to find out just how weird and entitled some people's neighbors truly can be. Subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get started. Okay, to start things out and just to make sure we're all on the same page, I'm 28 years old and I'm currently 6 months pregnant. I live with my husband, our younger son, and our daughter, and we bought our house about 2 years ago and mostly just keep to ourselves. The neighbors next door are a married couple in their 30s who love being the center of neighborhood attention. One prime example of that was a few weeks ago when I woke up on a Saturday morning and I saw the husband digging a hole in my front yard right next to my driveway. So I went outside and I asked him, "Hey, what are you doing?" He then told me that his wife was starting a little free neighborhood pantry in a library or whatever, and that apparently he was installing a wooden box on a post. Now I told him, "Hey, that's a cute idea, but guess what? You're digging on my side of the property line." He then laughed at me and said, "It's just a few inches over. Our side has sprinkler lines. Don't be selfish about charity." Now I was too exhausted from pregnancy to start some kind of debacle over this, so I just kind of let it go. But my God, that was a huge mistake. Fast forward to now, and people are stopping by at all hours of the night. Random cars pull up at 2 o'clock in the morning with their headlights shining directly into our house, waking up my kids. People drop off weird junk or leave empty fast food bags on my grass, not to mention the fact that they completely trampled our front flower bed. So I went over and I nicely asked the wife if they could please relocate the box to their porch because the late night traffic was waking my kids up and the trash was getting out of hand. But when I said this, she got defensive with me. She then told me, "Oh, you hate the poor people." And then she slammed the door in my face. So yesterday, while my husband was at work and the kids were occupied, I finally hit my breaking point. Even though I'm, oh, by the way, heavily pregnant, I grabbed a shovel, I carefully dug up the wooden post, and I waddled it about 6 feet over so it was fully planted in the middle of their front lawn. When the neighbor's husband got home, he came over and started banging on my front door, yelling that apparently I had vandalized their property. Now, I didn't open the door. I just told him through the Ring camera that I had kids in the house and to please stay off my property or else I'm gonna call the cops. But now the wife has posted a crying video on the neighborhood Facebook group, and she said her heartless pregnant neighbors trying to destroy their community project, and now apparently they have to shut it down because she's too stressed out. Now, my husband is fully on my side, but I'm getting dirty looks from people walking their dogs today. So honestly, is there any way I'm the jerk here? Because I really just don't know what to do from here. Oh man, my blood's boiling. Anybody else? Raise of hands. Who's got blood boiling inside of them? Dude, these people are crazy, man. What are they doing? First off, these people went to your property and put it on your driveway. What are we doing? Why don't you put it in your own front yard? Why mine? I don't want to deal with this, dude. This is annoying. Having people show up to my place at all hours of the night, disturbing my peace, shining their stupid headlights through the window. And that part especially sucks because some of these headlights, these LED headlights, are so bright. It's like a flashbang when you're driving down the highway. So the last thing I need is 2 o'clock in the morning when I'm in my underwear getting something from the fridge and then suddenly kablam! It's the Rapture, or I don't know, some idiots pulled into my driveway dropping off food. Or in this case, literally just empty fast food trash bags. What? So it's according to the neighbor's logic, it must be okay to dig up other people's yards and just install stuff without their permission. If that was the case, I would start installing Halloween decorations every night at 2 in the morning. Just have them wake up to an army of skeletons in their front yard, and it's I'm sorry, but if you're gonna put a pantry in my front yard, then you get to deal with an army of skeletons with an armor class of 13. And yes, by the way, I definitely looked that up in the monster manual sitting right next to me. So more to the point, no, of course you're not the jerk, dude. I would have removed that the second they put it up. In fact, I would even be okay, you can put it up, but I'm not gonna share the money I make off of it. Because yes, manifest destiny or capitalism or whatever, I'm absolutely gonna monetize that. If it's on my property, then congratulations, I'm making money off of it. Meaning that your little food pantry and charity that you put on my property is going to very quickly become a secondary source of income. But yeah, you're not the jerk. I would not worry about this at all. I think these people are crazy, and I'm so sorry you have them as neighbors. If you like Am I the Jerk and what we're doing over here, please check out Am I the Genius. It's going to be linked down below in the description. Just click and go ahead and subscribe to them. And also, if you have your own stories you want to submit, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you want to submit your own stories. We're reading them all the time and we're picking out the best ones, so trust me, we would love to hear what you have to say. Am I the jerk for telling my employee that she can't take a 2-hour lunch break just to go to therapy? Because right now she's saying that I'm discriminating against her, even though I'm literally just trying to run my office as best as I can. Here's what's currently happening because things are getting just a little bit weird. Okay, for a bit of context, I manage a small team, and one of my employees, who I will call Emma, asked if she can take a 2-hour lunch break break on Thursdays for therapy appointments. Our standard lunch, by the way, is 30 minutes. So I said to her that she can take an hour max, but she needs to make up the extra 30 minutes by coming in early or staying late. Well, she said her therapist is 30 minutes away, so she needs the full 2 hours. 30 minutes there, 50-minute session, and then 30 minutes back. I then suggested that she find a therapist closer to work or schedule appointments before or after work, but she said this specific therapist is the only one who understands her issues. I then told her, look, I sympathize, but I can't give her special treatment for 2-hour lunches when everybody else is getting 30-minute lunches. She then said it's a medical accommodation and that I'm legally required to provide it. So when she said that, I immediately checked with Human Resources, and guess what? I don't have to give 2-hour lunches. Reasonable accommodation would be like flexible scheduling, but she still needs to work her full hours. Well, Emma is now filing a complaint with the American Disability Association, saying that I'm discriminating against her mental health condition. And she's also gotten other employees involved who think I'm being heartless. One coworker even said, oh, it's just an extra hour a day a week. Why are you being so rigid? But if I let her do it, then everybody's gonna want special exceptions. In fact, another employee already asked if he can have a 2-hour lunch on Fridays for personal reasons, all because Emma's getting one herself. Emma now says that I'm like stigmatizing mental health by not treating therapy appointments as seriously as physical health appointments. But I would say the same thing if someone wanted 2 hours for a physical therapist across town. So am I really in the wrong here? Like, am I the jerk for not wanting my employee to take a 2-hour lunch break? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, I actually have some experience here because I've been to therapy and I completely understand where Emma's coming from, but I think the way she's doing it is completely wrong. Like, bro, we live in a day and age where telehealth visits are absolutely possible. So I totally understand where Emma's coming from. Like, trust me, I've had to go to therapy appointments before, like during work, but I've always made sure to accommodate that with my job and not just be like, I need 2 hours off of work. If I really need these appointments, then I'm gonna make that time up at the end of the day or like come in earlier, not just say, oh, let me shave off some time off my schedule because I need these appointments. So I think there is some kind of solution here. Like, I think there are ways to make this work if you really wanted to, but it definitely involves Emma taking the time to like stay later or come in earlier. Because otherwise, just like you said, it's probably going to cause issues with other employees, and I know for a fact I would be very annoyed with that if I was the manager. So no, in my opinion, I do not think you're the jerk, and I think you're doing everything you can to run your team as best as you can. This next story is proof that just because you do a good deed, it doesn't mean that your family's not going to twist this around and use it against you. Because the original poster quite literally got volunteered for something they never wanted to do, all because they did a good deed one time. Here's how they described it, and trust me, things get very frustrating. Okay, so I live about 20 minutes from my mom, and usually I see her like once or twice a month. Back in January, I helped my younger cousin polish up a scholarship essay, all because she was panicking and I'm decent at writing. It took maybe an hour, she submitted it, and that was that. Well, apparently, my mom told people at her choir group that I was great with this stuff, because 2 weeks later, I started getting text messages from numbers I did not know, asking if I could just take a quick look at their kids' essays, personal statements, short answers, and one very cursed resume written entirely in the third person. And yeah, think about that one for a second. Good lord, that's weird. Now, at first, I thought maybe one parent had asked my mom for advice and she passed my number along like once, which was already incredibly annoying, by the way. But then 3 folders showed up at my door in a reusable grocery bag with a sticky note that said, "Oh, thank you so much. The deadline's Friday." My mom had literally told people to drop things off with me because she said, oh, they work from home and they can fit it in. And sure, yeah, you're right, I do work from home, but that doesn't mean that I spend my afternoons fixing strangers' comma splices while eating yogurt at my desk. When I called her, she sounded genuinely confused about why I was upset. She said, oh, it's just writing, saying that I was making it a bigger deal than it really was. Now, what really made me lose it was last Saturday. I was out running errands and I came home to find my mom on my front steps with another parent and her son doing introductions like this was some kind of free academic service that she had launched. But she had not even asked if I was home. She just brought them over because the essay was almost there, and apparently he needed one final pair of eyes. Well, I walked up and I said no right there, and the mom got all stiff and said that she arranged her afternoon because my mother told her I was available. My mom kept giving me that tight-lipped smile parents do when they want you to stop talking and cooperate in public. But I told her, also in public, that handing out my number and promising my time was rude, and that she needed to stop. She then later called me dramatic and said that I made her look bad over something small. And sure, maybe I did, but I'm still finding random files in my email from people I have never met. So clearly, in my eyes, I don't think she thought this through at all, and she probably didn't expect this to blow up in her face in the way that it did. Man, guys, I don't know how we're gonna identify who's the jerk in this situation. Is it the original poster just wanting to live their life? Or is it the mom that's completely invading that? I don't know, guys, leave a comment. No, yeah, the mom is completely the jerk here. This is insane. My personal, general general rule of thumb with like life is I'm not going to volunteer someone for something they don't expressly say they want to do. So for the mom of this story to go to their kid and be like, oh, you're going to be writing all these essays over for these kids. In my opinion, this is one of the most infuriating things about entitled parents you can possibly run into, where they use the talents of their kids as like, I don't know, a bartering chip for social currency or something. Because in a roundabout way, and stay with me here, it seems like the mom is trying to take like credit for you being so good at writing. She's bragging about it to her friends and saying, oh yeah, my kid's really good at writing. They will absolutely do this for you. As if you're on call or something like that. Like that is so weird to me. And I know for me, I would go insane. Like I would probably never leave my house again if my parents tried that. That would be so annoying. So yeah, don't do that to people. If you're listening to this and you're like, I don't know, maybe my family member would want to help out with building a shed. No, dude, don't volunteer them for building a shed or moving like equipment or like furniture. Don't volunteer them to go house sitting or like walk some dogs on the weekends. Like none of that. Nobody needs that kind of energy because the original poster has free will. And the fact that the mom in the story is upset that you said, no, I'm not going to do this. Are you insane? Really shows her true colors and just how entitled she really can be. My entitled mother has been using my car while also refusing to make the payments on it, which by the way, we agreed she would do while she's using it. And now after over 15 months of saying that I'm going to take my car back and I'm going to sell it, she's now acting incredibly entitled. And at this point, I don't know if I'm the jerk for taking my car back and I really just don't know what to do. Here's basically what's going on. Okay, for starters, my mom has basically been using my car since like the middle of 2023. The car she had was on its last legs and pretty dangerous to drive, so I offered to let her use my car, provided that she will make like the payments on it. Meanwhile, I'll still cover the insurance. Now, everything was okay for the first like 3 months, but then she started paying partially. And for example, it would be like $300 out of a $450 payment, and sometimes even going low as $250. Now, I had multiple conversations with her about making the payments as I was not working due to just having a baby, and my husband was the only one bringing in income. And when I said this, she said to me that she would do better. Well, long story short, and I'm sure you're able to guess this one, she didn't do it, and instead just kept making these like partial payments or would just skip them altogether. In January of 2025, I finally called her and I said that I would resume taking over the payments on the car, which is no surprise. I mean, I've been doing that pretty much since she stopped paying for it. But also, I would be taking the car back the following year to sell it and essentially just use that money to pay off my second car, which would allow me to move out of my in-laws' house since I would have less debt. And when I said this, she agreed. And seriously, remember this part because it is absolutely going to be important later on. So I gave her over a year to save and even checked in with her multiple times. Well, a few months before the new year, she asked me for $2,000, which by the way is basically the total amount that she paid towards the car in general. Well, when she asked that, I obviously said no because genuinely, why would you ask that in the first place? But apparently she's now stressed out because she didn't save anything and she was relying solely on her tax return to get herself a new car. My sister has called and told me that I was being unreasonable in selling the car so soon and that apparently I should just give her a few more months to get some money together. But guess what? I refuse because again, she had 15 months to save up. So seriously, I really need to know, am I really the jerk here for wanting my car back? Because my mom is making this incredibly hard for me and I don't know what to do anymore. Okay, I think I'm evil because I don't think I would have this kind of patience. The second she decided, oh, I'm just gonna pay half payments, you're gonna get $250 and that's it. That's the second I would have been like, okay, if this happens again, I'm taking my car back. Because what are we doing here? I'm not trying to be heartless here, dude, but like if we have an agreement, then you need to do your part to like fulfill the agreement. And you see this all the time in family, right? They think just because like, oh yeah, we're family, that means I can kind of screw you over on this deal. And in my opinion, it kind of seems like there's a lot of laziness and entitlement here where it's like, oh yeah, I'll make the car payments, but guess what? I'm now gonna need that money back, so give me my $2,000. It's like, bro, this was not us like pretending to make car payments just for the fun of it. I'm not gonna give that money back. I need to make my car payments and like, I don't know, move on with my life. So my official judgment as the narrator of this story is no, you're not the jerk. Your mom is entitled, she's being very weird, and if she really can't get her ducks in a row in 15 months, especially after you checking in on her all the time, then that is a her problem and definitely not a you problem. My entitled boss gives me more work than I'm literally capable of doing, putting me in a situation where I have to prove to them through some very petty revenge that no, I can't do your job for you because I literally don't have any time. Here's how it all happened. Okay, for a bit of context about me, I worked at a newspaper company from the time I was 19 years old until I was about 21. I started out as a receptionist and later got placed into like a data entry position for the billing of advertisement slots. I was a fast and reliable typist, so it made sense. Not a glamorous first job, but I really enjoyed it. I was pretty much the only data entry person for a significant time period. My coworkers in the main office would enter their own sales into the system, but I would then enter those from our other offices. Now, during this period, the owners of the company were buying up more small town newspapers, and I believe at the time we were up to like about 16 in total. Well, and this is also important, one of the things I did before I moved into data entry was do legal documents. This mostly consisted of changing dates, newspaper name, and supervisor's name. Then I would paste on a cutout of the notice that they require a legal document for and place them on my boss's desk for her to like get signed and notarized. Well, I stopped doing legal documents after I trained the new receptionist, and I don't really remember why exactly, but one day my boss asked me if I could do a few legal documents one week. Now, at this point in time, we had just bought like 4 new newspapers, and I was way too busy trying to keep up with deadlines to do those legal documents. So I just told her I didn't have the time to do them, and she just laughed at me and told me I'd figure it out. Now, keep in mind that I'm 20 years old. I'm the youngest person in the office by at least a decade. I'm overworked from being the sole person in charge of multiple newspaper advertisements and a frequent scapegoat for any mistakes made in the data, which like 9 times out of 10, the mistakes were made by my boss themselves. Like, you can literally see this by checking who last opened and submitted an ad. They just never bothered verifying beforehand who made the mistake. I pointed this out countless times and they would just sheepishly walk away, which all led me to decide to be a little bit petty. So I went to my office and I entered the data. Every newspaper had a different deadline which I would have to meet so they could compare the preprints to the data for the following week. But those legals weren't due until Friday. So for 3 days, I struggled to keep up with the sheer bulk of all the data I had to enter, and I barely even glanced at those legal documents. Well, Friday was a slower day in the afternoon, but the notary typically left at around noon. So by the time I got the legals done, she was gone. And this is where my boss, who by the way had completely forgotten about all the legals, actually blew up on me and demanded to know why I didn't have them earlier and that they had to go out today. Meanwhile, I'm literally still sitting there with a giant stack of data that I had to enter by Monday at noon. I then just simply looked at her in the eye and I said, I told you I didn't have time to do them. Well, apparently I glared so hard that she immediately backed down, which honestly I was and still am super proud about that. She ended up having to drive to the notary's house and get her to sign them and then drive back to the office just to fax them. And no, the notary did not live in town, so that made the entire thing just a little bit sweeter. Okay, I've been here before. Maybe some of you can relate to this, where you have a boss who literally just doesn't understand where you're coming from. They see you doing all this work and they're like, oh, let me add some more work on top of your work. That's fine, right? You could do it. You're a champ. You're a team player. Meanwhile, you are literally up to your eyeballs in paperwork and it's like, dude, I can't do more. Unless you want to take my DNA and clone me and make a copy of myself to do more work, this is just not going to get done. And my God, have I been in that situation before where it's like, okay, I absolutely have no time for anything else. I'm up a creek with no boat, no paddle, and I'm plummeting towards the waterfall, bro. What do you want from me? So honestly, I love this kind of petty revenge. I think the fact that you just didn't do it because you had no time was hilarious in my opinion. And this clearly was like the best way to get it through to your boss that you're not just a workhorse and that you literally don't have time to do everything in the office. Today, I'm kind of convinced that I might get fired after only working 3 shifts at this new restaurant job. And I'm honestly scratching my head because I have no idea if I did something wrong, and at this point, I don't know what to do to try and make it right. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I just started working as a server at a Chinese restaurant recently, and I just had my 3rd shift. This is also my first time having a job. It's also a private small business, so I never got any training modules or anything. On my first day, I went in and was immediately serving water. I even started taking orders on my first day. I was then told to go home at a random time because it was so slow. But my manager on my first day told me that I'm good for not having any experience. On my 2nd day though, I made a mistake with an order. But another coworker said I'm good even though I've never worked as a server before. But in my defense, even the person training me made a mistake with the order because it was just so insanely busy. I then had my 3rd shift yesterday. I didn't make a mistake, but because the menus used Chinese terms, I had trouble explaining the menu to customers. And I even asked my coworker and my manager once about the menu while taking orders. It was a very chill day, but when a regular came in, they literally started asking for things that we don't have on the menu. She eventually kind of like figured out that I was new, and then she went went to the chef and said, "I'm asking you because she doesn't know the menu." Even though, by the way, all of my recommendations when she asked for recommendations were correct. Well, later that day, I found out that the manager thought that I might not be a good fit for this role. And maybe it was because I was slacking off that day. It was so slow and I was working with a friend, but everyone was doing this. We were all just gathered around talking when there weren't any customers. Like, even the manager was doing it. And I obviously don't want to not join the conversation since I want to leave a good first impression. My boss also texted me this evening asking how my shift was and even told me to fully memorize the menu by Thursday, which, by the way, the menu is at least like 5 pages long. He also told me to apologize if I make mistakes or struggle taking orders, and that apparently this is my fault. I then asked him what else I could improve on, and he basically said that my customer service isn't good and that I look mad all the time. But in my defense, I always smile when customers come in. I say, "Hi, how are you doing?" and then I get them seated. And they all smile back at me, so I'm probably doing nothing wrong. I also don't think I look extremely mad either. I had grandmas ask if it was my first day and then just smile and joke at me. And even a family on my 3rd day would chuckle when I said, "Oh, it's my 3rd day here." I just don't think my boss sees this because my boss faces my back when I walk and greet the customers when they come in. Now, this week I have 2 more shifts, and honestly, if I don't do well here, I think I might get fired. I'm just so puzzled on if it's normal to get fired so quickly like this. I think it's just me not knowing the menu well, but I will have this memorized by my next shift. So does anyone have any ideas of like why I might get fired from my job? Do you think things would get better if I just knew the menu and had it memorized in some kind of way? Because right now I'm kind of scratching my head because I don't know what's about to happen. Okay, I gotta be completely honest with the original poster, but dude, you are definitely under a microscope when you first start a job. Literally everybody's watching you. Even the coworker that you don't think reports to the boss probably is also reporting back to the boss. And I only say that because at one point in my life, I was one of those coworkers. So yes, I do admit it. I have a past of being a snitch. I apologize for my crimes and please forgive me. But seriously, like, everybody's watching you. Everybody's trying to figure out, is this person a good fit? Are they gonna be cool to hang out with and work with? Or are they gonna slack off like we're currently doing? Which, by the way, dude, don't do that again. Don't slack off, like clean or do something. Slacking off and sitting and talking with coworkers, like at least for the first little while, that's pretty much going to be reserved for people who have been there for a while. And honestly, that doesn't include you for now. I would give it a few months, like 6 months at the minimum before you can even begin to do something like that. Because right now you just want to prove yourself and prove that you can still like do your job well and that you're a good fit for this restaurant as a whole. So honestly, I hope you don't get fired. Like, I don't know, you probably won't if you do a good job this next few shifts. But I gotta be honest, it's not really a good sign when they're like, "I don't know if you're a good fit for this job." Like, seriously, having them say that this early into your job is not a good sign, and honestly, I am wishing for the best for whatever might happen. Today, I messed up by jokingly ringing up a transaction at my store for $28 million. And even though we tried to make it right by returning everything, I'm now in fear that I'm about to lose my job because at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work at a liquor store, and it being the 26th of December, it was relatively very slow today. Near the end of my shift, me and my coworker had nothing better to do. So I jokingly scanned a miniature bottle of alcohol several times as if he was a customer purchasing many bottles. To keep the joke going, I then scanned an entire box of pre-made shooters, something like 40 shooters at $3 each, and I did this several times once again. The total was something like $2,500 at this point. My coworker then has the bright idea to check the system and find some expensive wines that were sold and are still in the system, and finds one that's worth several thousands of dollars, and sets the quantity in the point of sale to $999, which is the maximum allowed. By this point, the running total is $9 million, and we are cracking up the entire time because we are so bored. He then finds another bottle that's crazy expensive, sets the quantity back up to $999, bringing the total amount up to $28 million. Now, this is where I'm personally responsible for this mess up. I pretended to bring the transaction up to the point right up to where you confirm how much the customer's paying in cash. And mind you, the system automatically assumes the customer is paying in full, and the only thing stopping the transaction from going through was a single press of the enter key. Well, my coworker didn't see that I was already there and mistakenly pressed the enter key to reach the same point I had brought us to. And so at this point, $28 million in theoretical cash made its way into the cash register's balance. I then yelled at my coworker and I asked him what he did. And once he did realize what he had done, his eyes went wide. We then started to scramble as we immediately tried to reverse the entire transaction. But there's a $1 million maximum that you can return at a time. So attempting to return $28 million of sold alcohol just didn't work. Well, after figuring out the maximum, I then had to do dozens of returns, each worth $1 million at a time, until every single bottle of alcohol was supposedly returned and the inventory was finally corrected. However, in the reports for that day, it will show $28 million in revenue and a similar amount in returns, which will completely mess up our stats and graphs and literally everything, which the higher-ups will obviously inquire about. I'm going to wait for my store manager tomorrow morning before she comes in so that I can explain what happened and confess that we were joking around and we never meant to go through with the transaction. So please pray for my job because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, holy crap, I cannot imagine making this kind of mess up. Because I know if I was in your shoes, I would start looking for another job. Like, this is a huge mess up. Because this is not gonna look good, dude. If you had any aspirations of getting, like, promoted, you can probably kiss that goodbye. Because if you and your buddy are pretending to sell, like, $28 million worth of alcohol, then in the manager's eyes, it's proof that they can't trust you. Like, I know for a fact if I was a manager and I found out one of my employees did that, I would immediately cross them off of any list possible when it comes to, like, promotion or giving them any kind of raise. And if anything, I would probably look to replace them. Like, this sucks. This makes the manager look bad. It makes the store look bad. All because you're messing around and jokingly trying to ring stuff up you shouldn't. Like, dude, what a bad decision. So yeah, this is definitely a huge mess up. And hopefully you don't lose your job, even though I think you probably will. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for spending my Christmas money on myself instead of buying big gifts for everyone this year? Because right now, my family's making me feel very stupid for the decisions I made. And at this point, I don't know if I made a mistake. Here's what's going on. So this Christmas, I did something kind of different, and now I'm not sure if I'm a jerk or not. Every year, I usually stress so much about gifts, like counting money, checking prices, thinking who will judge what, running around malls tired and annoyed. And every year, I end up broke, exhausted, and half the gifts are just nice but useless stuff. This year, I looked at my bank account and I just felt tired. I'm not like super broke or anything, but I'm not rich either. And instead of pushing it like always, I decided to finally spend money on myself. I paid for things I've been postponing forever. I went to the dentist because a tooth was acting up for months. I bought decent winter boots because my old ones were literally letting water in, and most of the time I was walking around with wet socks on. I also got a warm sweater I've wanted for like 2 years, but always felt guilty buying. I still bought gifts for family, but it still wasn't anything fancy. Some candles, some sweets, just small cozy things. Thoughtful, but still very cheap items. No iPhones, no expensive perfumes, no oh look how much I spent kind of gifts. To me, it felt more honest and calm this way. But when Christmas came along, it was really awkward. Nobody said anything straight, but you know those looks. My aunt even made a joke saying, wow, Santa was on a budget this year, wasn't he? My mom later asked if I was having money problems, which annoyed me more than I expected. I tried to explain that I'm fine, I just needed to put myself first for once, and she just nodded along, but I could tell that she didn't really get it. And now I'm sitting here feeling kind of guilty and kind of relieved at the same time. Guilty because Christmas has all these unspoken rules, and relieved because I didn't destroy myself financially or mentally this year. I actually enjoyed the holidays more. I had less stress and I was more at peace. But still, I need to know, am I the jerk for choosing myself over expensive Christmas gifts? Because the way my family reacted made me feel like an idiot. Okay, I honestly cannot stand when people act like this because this is so selfish. First of all, the original poster literally said to themselves, hey, I'm stressed out. I need to treat myself for once or I'm gonna go crazy. So to that extent, I don't blame them for a second for being like, okay, everyone's getting more cheap stuff and I'm spending money on me. Because at the end of the day, that's exactly what you need to do sometimes. You need to step up and say, okay, I need to take care of myself first and then other people. Because clearly your extended family only likes you for the gifts that you give them, not for any like heartfelt reason. And that's really messed up in my opinion. Like truly, that is not okay. So no, you didn't do anything wrong. You're not the jerk at all. As far as I'm concerned, if these people can't be like at least somewhat grateful for what you did give them and instead tries to be like, oh, Santa's on a budget, then that, in my opinion, shows how toxic they are and how much you really did need to take a break from them. Because they're clearly not grateful for your contribution to their life and you don't need that in the slightest. My entitled coworker is probably one of the worst people to work with on the planet, as he is always rude and says some terrible things about people that I work with. So I decided to get some revenge and take advantage of his OCD and germaphobe tendencies by putting a sticker on his machine he uses for work every single day for literally almost a year. And as a result, I drove this guy up a wall as he started to get desperate about trying to find out who was doing this to him. And I've honestly never felt more satisfaction at getting back at someone, especially someone as rude as this coworker. later. Here's how I did it. Okay, so this was years ago, but it still holds a very special place in my memories. I used to work in a warehouse, and I'm the kind of person who gets along with just about everyone. So when Mr. Jerk didn't like me, I didn't really take it personally. I just tried to ignore him, and we stayed out of each other's ways. He was the guy, by the way, who worked there for over 20 years and really sucked up to pretty much all of upper management. No matter how many people he was rude to or pissed off, it just simply didn't matter. He wasn't going anywhere. And to add insult to injury, he always asked for vacation during blackout dates and got it, which meant he was quite the accomplished squeaky wheel. Now, Mr. Jerk was very opinionated about certain ethnic groups and people in the LGBTQ community, and I'm definitely not going to repeat his views here, but just know that they were really bad. He was also a huge germaphobe. We didn't have specific assigned machines, but the one machine was his. He would wipe it down and clean it for 30 minutes at the start of his shift. He would also try his best to make his machine as inconvenient to get to for the other shifts, so they'd all go for the other machines first. Machines were limited, so someone on the other shifts usually had to dig his out and use it, and obviously it pissed him off to no end. Now, for a bit of context that will be important later, my girlfriend was a teacher and bought some stickers for her class. She bought a huge bag and started going through it just to make sure that they were like family friendly. And let me just tell you, this came with some very bizarre stickers. Nothing inappropriate, just really weird stuff. Imagine stuff like a bowl of guacamole with the chips dancing the salsa, or even a chicken wing with like a cat face on it, stuff like that. One day, I came home and I vented about something Mr. Jerk had said that was really irritating me. My girlfriend then simply said, "Oh, he's a germaphobe, right? Just take some of these super weird stickers and stick them all over his machine." And you know what? That got me thinking. I said, you know what? I start an hour before he does. I'm gonna put one sticker in the same spot every day from here on out. He's definitely gonna enjoy daily weird stickers. Well, 2 months go by and it became my normal routine. I'd put a super weird sticker on his machine, he would take it off and then clean his machine, and life went on. I didn't really think much of it, just a small chuckle every time. But one day I saw Mr. Jerk talk with my work husband about something super heated, and I asked him what it was about. They said to me, "Oh, Mr. Jerk is super pissed that someone from the night shift keeps putting weird stickers on his machine. It's honestly so funny how pissed off he is over something like that." Well, at this point, I just break and I admit that it's me, causing the both of us to start howling with laughter. Our supervisor comes over and asks what we're laughing about, and I explain everything, and he just starts laughing as well. He then says, well, if he doesn't complain to me, I don't have to do anything about it. I mean, it is pretty harmless. And after that, it became a team effort to ritually put stickers on Mr. Jerk's machine. Well, 4 months go by, and yeah, we're still doing it. I eventually catch him angrily ripping off the stickers from his machine, so I walk up and I play dumb. I say, "Man, that's a super weird sticker you got there." He then looks at me and says, "Every single shift, man. The stickers just don't stop." And I'm serious when I say this. I don't know how I kept it together, but I did. I then said to him, "Oh man, who would do that? That is so weird." He then said to me, "It's ridiculous. Let me show you." He then proceeds to show me a complete mural of these stupid stickers on a huge sheet of cardboard. This weirdo kept every single one of them. Like I was psychologically torturing this guy, and I honestly started to feel bad. I decided that enough was enough and I would stop after that. But then he hit me with his hypothesis. We have a trans man on the night shift, and Mr. Jerk used really bad terminology for him, and then proceeded with a tirade about how our coworker is obsessed with him and wants to kidnap and do horrible things to him. And oh boy, that really pissed me off. I was gonna fess up and stop, but these stickers aren't gonna stop anytime soon. I made sure to put a sticker on his machine when our trans coworker wasn't working, just so he would realize that it wasn't them, further dwelling him into madness and questioning who's doing this. Well, 6 more months go by and the stickers increase in weirdness, with such classics as "I just want to hug you" and "You're such a beautiful flower," with some awesome weird imagery to complement them. Eventually, at his wit's end, I fess up that it was mostly me and my work husband. Well, the look of betrayal and relief on his face was worth the months and months of torment. I mean, who knew that harmless stickers could torment a jerk like that? He then promised to get me back, but honestly, we'll see. It's been years at this point, and yes, I do still have a picture of his sticker mural. It's a work of art, and honestly, it was completely worth it. Okay, I love this so much because I hate coworkers like this who act like they're better than everybody else, and ones who like literally make everyone's life miserable. Those are the people that, in my opinion, absolutely deserve to be on the receiving end of office pranks. So to this extent, I think what the original poster did is hilarious and absolutely deserved. Am I the jerk for telling my neighbor to stop using my driveway, as he slowly started to take advantage of my kindness by using it just a little bit too much? Because after I told him I would tow his car if he did it again, he's now saying that I'm being uptight and that I'm having a power trip over my own driveway. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 34-year-old female and I live in a small suburban neighborhood with narrow streets and short driveways. I've been here about 2 years and things were fine until this past spring. My neighbor, who I will call Mark, who's in his late 40s, has 3 cars but only space for 2 in his driveway. At first, he asked if he could pull into the edge of my driveway for like a minute while waiting for his kids or unloading groceries, and at the time, I said yes. But after a few months, he started using my driveway multiple times a day. He'll pull in halfway and sit with the engine running, or park fully and just leave the car there. I've had to wait to get in or out multiple times, and once I was late to an appointment because he wasn't around. I tried hinting that it has become a problem, but he would apologize and then do it again the next day. Well, last week I got home after a long shift, and his car was fully in my driveway. I waited 10 minutes, I knocked on the door, and he acted annoyed that I interrupted his dinner, and he said it wasn't like I was using it right then. I then told him he's not allowed to use my driveway anymore, even for a minute, and that if it happens again, I will call for a tow truck. Well, he got defensive and now won't make eye contact with me. I then overheard him tell another neighbor that I'm uptight and power tripping. Now, I feel justified since it's my property, and I tried being nice for months, but I wonder if saying I'm gonna tow his car was just a bit too much at this point, because right now I don't know if I'm in the wrong. Dude, this guy was taking advantage of you, and he's only pissed off because you shut him down, which, by the way, was the only correct response to make. Letting him get away with this is so weird in my opinion. He has 3 cars and no space for it, and that is not your problem. He could easily park somewhere else on the street itself and not use your driveway, but instead he's using your driveway because you've been kind of a doormat, if I'm being completely honest. So no, you're not the jerk. This guy was overstaying his welcome, and in my opinion, he absolutely deserved to get shut down. Am I the jerk for wanting to get a divorce from my wife? All because of the fact that anytime we eat a meal, she goes and eats it in her room instead of eating it with me. And now I feel like I'm at an impasse because right now I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my wife and I have been together for 9 years in total and married for 3. We met when we were in high school, and I had instantly felt attraction for her and all the things that she was into. I loved and have loved her kindness, her joy, her laughter, and her intelligence. We don't have too many problems in our marriage, and there's very few things that either of us get upset about that can't be resolved within a few minutes or hours of talking. But there is one constant conversation that I've had to have with her though, because I am genuinely so confused. My wife always eats her meals in the bedroom. She always does it alone, and I've asked her if she wants me to come in and eat with her, if she would somehow feel more comfortable having me in the bedroom, but she always says no. This wasn't a thing for the first year of our marriage, but it has been for the last 2 years. It started with her saying that she has a lot of work to catch up on and that she wants to eat in the bedroom, and it slowly progressed to a constant thing. And this is not just for dinner, mind you. If she's at home, it's for every meal. I will bring up if she wants to talk or even like watch a movie with me while we eat, and she says she would love to once she's done with her meal. I have wondered about her having an eating disorder or being embarrassed to eat in front of me, so I've talked to her about both of these things. I also am confused because she's eaten many meals in front of me during the first year of our marriage and while we were dating. Her answers have been very confident, and I have been reassured that she doesn't feel either of those ways. She's always done with her meal in a few minutes, as I can see her plate is clean when she comes out. I've even checked the trash can to see if she secretly dumps out her meals, but there's never been any evidence of that. The evidence would have been contained in our bedroom, so it would have been pretty easy to see. Well, last night I broke down about all of this. I was frustrated that we couldn't ever go to dinner parties with friends or eat out as a couple because she won't eat in front of me. Food can be a love language, and I want to share all of that with her. I then started crying because she's been this way for 2 years with no end in sight. I miss sharing a meal with my wife. I miss holding her hand while we order food and drinks out in public, and I also hate the unknown. If she is suffering, I want her to tell me. I have no idea why she's doing this, and I just miss her. When I broke down to her last night, she comforted me as she always does, but she told me that this is just a habit that she's developed and she doesn't know if she ever would feel comfortable breaking it. I told her that I'm not okay with this being my future for every meal. And yeah, we cook together, but we don't eat together. The only way that I know she enjoyed the food is by seeing her plate empty when she comes out. It ended with no conclusion as usual, and I have no idea how long I can keep doing this for. I mean, we couldn't even enjoy Christmas or Christmas Eve dinner together. I can't even go over to my family's for holidays with her because she will insist on eating in a bathroom or a bedroom. We can't stay a night together at someone's place without them having to accommodate her habit. Like, I am so done with this. Right now, I just woke up on the couch, and after a sleepless night, I am seriously considering divorce. I love her, but this seriously has me drained. I now dread food because I know I cannot share it with her. I dread food because I know she leaves me to go eat it. I just don't understand. So I need to know if I'm overreacting or if this is divorce worthy. I have talked to my mom and she says it's very strange, but marriage has sacrifices, so I just need to hold out. I then texted my brother about it and he says that I should look more into what my wife is doing during that time, but I don't feel comfortable doing that and divorce could be an option. So seriously, am I overreacting? Like, am I the jerk here? Is divorce way too much over the line? Because right now I don't know what else to do. Oh man, this is really weird because I can see why this would be annoying. When you first started to describe this, I was like, okay, maybe this is just like a thing where she doesn't like you watching her eat or something like that. But man, this is extending even outside the home. You can't go to dinner parties, you can't spend time with anybody else. If there's any food involved, she expects to be accommodated. Like, I'm sorry, but that's really weird. That is some strange behavior that is not normal. So in that respect, I don't blame you for like demanding answers, or at least some kind of explanation of what's going on in her head. But I think in my opinion, I think having some kind of like intervention, whether that's like therapy or like talking to her or something like that, some way of getting through to her that, hey, I'm really not happy and we need to address this, might be your first thing you need to do, again, just to try and see where things are at. Because her saying, oh, this is just a habit I don't want to break, is just not going to cut it. That doesn't give you any kind of solace or any kind of like resolution to the issue at hand. So no, you're not the jerk for feeling that way. I think I would probably be in a similar place if this was happening to me. Whether or not you should go through with it, like obviously you know the details of your relationship way better than anybody who would be listening to this, but I think try to reach out again and like talk with her and find some kind of middle ground might be your best option, because this behavior is really unusual and I don't blame you for wanting to know what's happening. My mom, after a lifetime of gaslighting me and treating me like garbage, is still unsatisfied with how long I visit anytime I come and see them. And it's kind of hit a point where I seriously just don't know if I can take it anymore because her attitude has become incredibly obnoxious. Here's what's going on. Okay, for starters, we have never had a good relationship. For as long as I can remember, my relationship with my mom has always been fraught, full of arguments, guilt tripping, and gaslighting on her end, controlling behavior and silent treatments, and attempts to sabotage my goals. Well, a few years ago, I finally left my home country permanently, and I'm now happily married and fully established in my new home. The last time I visited my home country, which is halfway around the world by the way, was in late 2023, about 2 years after I permanently moved out. I was there for a week and my mom complained I wasn't there long enough and I should be spending more time with them. And now she's pestering me to visit them again because my dad is getting a benign tumor removed in January. Given that we have never had a good relationship, I think you understand why the prospect of visiting doesn't exactly fill me with excitement. I then said that we would think about visiting, but it wasn't always possible due to the expense. And just so you understand, it is really far away, so the flights can always cost a lot of money. Not to mention accommodations, as I never want to just stay at my parents' place. Plus, my husband and I only have so many days of leave, which we also want to use to visit other places. But my mom only has herself in mind and says things like, "Don't you miss us?" Even though I want to say no. And she'll say, "Oh, your dad is sick." But it's like, okay, maybe it's bad of me to say this, but he is not terminally ill, and I don't see an urgent need to rush back. I really just hate the entitlement. I'm sick of being pestered to drop tons of money on trips that I know I won't even really enjoy when I could be off on another holiday with my husband. And I'm sick of being told that whatever length of time I visit is not enough, and her complete lack of understanding or empathy that we have our own busy lives here, and her refusal to accept that where she lives is no longer my home, and I can't just stay there for weeks and weeks. Not to mention the utter lack of compromise. Whenever I float the idea of them coming to visit us instead, or meeting somewhere abroad to spend time together, I get shot down with a statement of, "Oh, it's too expensive, we can't afford it." Meanwhile, it's somehow fair for us to bear all the costs and effort every single time. But seriously, this all feels so frustrating, and at this point I don't know what else to do. Oh man, your mom sounds incredibly toxic. Like, I've got to be honest. There is so much guilt tripping going on, and it's like, dude, you really think that's going to work at this point? For me, anytime someone tries to guilt trip me by being like, "Oh, you don't miss us. Your dad is sick. You need to visit him," or any language like that, personally, it makes me push back even more and be like, you know what? Maybe I don't want to go visit you. Because this just kind of seems like a precursor to what you would deal with probably the entire stay. Oh, and by the way, staying a week is still a long time. I don't care who you are. That's a long time to stay with people who clearly don't appreciate you, and they're just gonna treat you like crap the entire time. Like, the original poster even said that their mom was trying to sabotage their life goals. Like, what is going on? That is some crazy behavior, dude. So I personally don't blame the original poster. Like, I would hate dealing with this. And if you had a choice between going home and being treated like crap for a week, or using your time off from work to go to like a vacation and just relax or have fun, I would pick the latter every single time, especially if I had parents like this, because they sound incredibly awful. My entitled mother seems to believe that she has a final say in who I can and cannot marry, because after I introduced her to my boyfriend, she explicitly stated that I am forbidden from marrying that man. And at this point, I am so pissed off that I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, for starters, I come from a Christian home, and my mother is extremely religious. Church is not just part of her life, it is her entire identity, and she believes that being religious automatically makes her right about everything. I'm a 25-year-old female, and I'm currently dating someone who I will call Chris for the sake of the story. We've been together for a while, and recently we decided to take the next step and start planning for marriage. 2 days ago, I introduced Chris to my family so we could begin those discussions properly. The meeting itself went fine, and Chris was respectful and polite, and everybody seemed okay during the visit, so I thought things were moving in a good direction. After Chris left, my mother immediately called a family meeting and said that Chris would not be marrying me because, according to her, he is not a committed Christian. She said this as if it were like already decided and not even open for discussion. She then reminded me for what felt like the 100th time that she already has a better suitor for me. This man, who I will call James, happens to be a member of the church that she attends. I have no romantic interest in James, but in my mother's mind, his church membership alone makes him the superior choice. My elder brother, who I will call Kevin, spoke up and said that he does not support her choosing a partner for me. He told her clearly that I'm an adult and capable of deciding who I want to marry. Well, my mom responded by saying, I am her mother. I am matured enough to know what is good for her. And that sentence summed up everything. In her mind, my age, my feelings, and autonomy mean nothing compared to her title as my mother. I then told her calmly but briefly that she has no right to choose a partner for me. I told her that I love Chris and that I intend to marry him. She then accused me of being disrespectful, and she blamed Chris for changing me, and even claimed that my decision to stand up for myself was proof that he's a bad influence. According to her, loving someone she did not choose equals rebellion. The discussion eventually turned into an argument, and my elder brother and I stood up and just left the meeting. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation for not wanting to marry this man that my mom's trying to set me up with? Because right now I'm honestly pissed off and I don't know what to do. Okay, your mom is crazy. Seriously, she's trying to use her religion as some way of being like, oh, I get to decide who you can marry. And guess what? James is a better man for you because he goes to my church. And it's like, bro, there are so many things wrong with that. But the biggest thing for me is like, just because you go to church doesn't mean that you're better than someone else. I know so many people who are Christian and go to church, but they are pieces of garbage. They cheat on their wives, they literally steal from people, and they are literally the exact opposite of what they believe in. Why on earth would anybody want to get married to that? And it's like, dude, who knows what James is actually like? He could be some weirdo at the end of the day, but she has no idea because she's blinded by the fact that, oh, he's a member of my church, so he's good. That's a better suitor than what you got right now. Sorry, but I'm your mom. Oh, and by the way, anytime someone says, oh, I'm your mother or I'm your father, so you have to listen to me, that should be a giant red flag that no, you probably shouldn't listen to them, and what they're saying is most likely garbage. Like, since when is that a justification for anything? Like, this isn't colonial times. What's going on right now? Just because you're my parent and you're religious and you believe in God doesn't mean you're somehow like a genius and you somehow have a say over my entire life. Like, what's happening right now? So if I was in your shoes, I would reject this arranged marriage garbage and be like, no, I'm gonna marry Chris and there's nothing you can do about that. Because as far as I can see, Chris probably checks a lot of boxes for you. He's respectful, he's polite, and obviously you love him. And if your mom's not on board with that, then that is absolutely her problem and not yours. Because as an adult, your mom has absolutely no say in what you can and cannot do, especially when it comes to who you want to marry. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Did I overreact by staying in a hotel instead of staying at my boyfriend's family's house for Christmas, all because they had a cat that I'm allergic to? Because right now, I feel like my entire life is falling apart, and at this point, I don't know what else to do. Here's what's going on. So my boyfriend and I have been dating for 2 years, and we decided that since last year we spent both holidays, namely Thanksgiving and Christmas, with my family, we would finally spend some holiday time with his family. Now, I was so excited about this because from the times that he's called them and the pictures he's shown me, they seemed really lovely. But because we live across the country from his family and he hasn't seen them in a few years, this would be the first time I'd meet them in person. Anyways, flash forward to the 23rd, where we flew into his hometown and then got to the house. And when I got there, I saw that his family has cats. And yes, more than one. Mind you, I'm allergic to cats. So after exchanging pleasantries with the rest of his family and dropping our stuff off in the guest bedroom, I asked my boyfriend if we could step outside to talk because at this point I was gripping a tissue, trying to make sure that my nose didn't drip everywhere on everyone one while trying to hide the fact that I was scratching myself like a maniac. We went outside and I asked him why he didn't tell me that his family had cats, knowing that I'm allergic to them, but he told me that I already knew his family were cat people and that apparently I would have already come prepared, while also saying that they're short-haired cats, meaning that they don't trigger allergies. Now, to his point, I did know from pictures when he was younger that he had a cat, but when I had asked if his family had gotten another one, he told me no because his family was very attached to this cat, so it wouldn't be the same if they got another one. So I brought that up and he just said to me, well, I guess they just forgot to tell me about the new ones. So because I wanted to make a good impression of his family and had nowhere else to stay, I tried to tough it out for the rest of the stay. And I will say, it was a terrible idea. The next morning, my eyes were red and itchy, and so was the rest of my body. It felt like my nose was about to literally fall off my face. So I told my boyfriend that as much as I wanted to, I just simply couldn't stay here. I then asked if we could go to a hotel instead, and that during Christmas, I would keep trying throughout the day by going in and out of the house just to make it through. But for today, I just needed some time to recover. Well, he then told me that I could stay at a hotel, but he wanted to stay at his family's house because he hadn't seen them in forever. In hindsight, I really should have protested more, but I just accepted it, and we drove to find a hotel that would have an open room at the last minute. Safe to say, we did find one, but it's almost 30 minutes from the house. So I stayed there, and my boyfriend brought me meals and checked on me every few hours. Well, eventually Christmas Day comes around, and I'm feeling better and waiting for my boyfriend to come pick me up. Well, after an hour of waiting at the time he said he would be there, I called him up and asked him if he was on his way. He responded by saying that he was and that he just got busy. Well, fast forward and 2 more hours passed by. So I tried to call him, but it went straight to voicemail. Then I texted him, but still I got no response. Then 5 more hours passed by, and he called me to tell me that he was outside. I then yelled at him over the phone that he was supposed to pick me up hours ago, and he apologized but said that he was busy opening gifts and talking to family. I then told him that he was better off going back to the house because I was staying at the hotel. He then told me, fine, be that way, and then he drove off. Well, fast forward to yesterday, where he picked me up to go to his aunt's house, where I was being given the silent treatment all day. And this is all aside from some talks we had, just to save face in front of the rest of his family. But I will say that other than that, it went pretty well. After he dropped me back off at the hotel, he didn't say anything. No goodnight call, nothing, which embarrassingly made me cry myself to sleep. And now I'm sitting here typing this, trying to make any kind of sense out of all of this. I'm thinking about how I could have stuck it out the whole trip and everything would be fine. And I could have just played it off as if I'm just sick from the weather changing, because now I feel like my whole life is falling apart. So seriously, did I overreact by getting a hotel? Should I have just toughed it out? What should I do? Oh my god, your boyfriend is so toxic it is not even funny. First and foremost, this guy abandoned you on Christmas Day. Your hotel was only 30 minutes away, and this guy literally said, oh, I'm not gonna pick you up. I'm gonna pick you up 7 hours later, and then turn this against you when you get upset about it. Like, this guy is a piece of crap. I think you need to see that first and foremost. And there's a lot of red flags here, like, I'm not even kidding. Because for starters, this guy absolutely knew that they had a cat. Anything he's saying right now is completely a lie, and I just don't believe that. But also, he's trying to sit there and be like, oh yeah, I was too busy to pick you up and bring you over for Christmas. Like, are you kidding me right now? That's so dumb. And the icing on the cake for me is the fact that he's giving you the cold shoulder and treating you like garbage and not showing any affection. Like, dude, your girlfriend had an allergic reaction and he's trying to act like you're ruining things, all because you can't stay in a house that you're allergic to. Like, come on, man. So yeah, this guy sucks, and no, you didn't do anything wrong. Going to a hotel quite literally was the smart decision, especially when you consider that your own health was at risk. So in my opinion, I think you could do way better than this boyfriend, because he does not sound like a winner, and in my opinion, it just doesn't sound like he likes you in the slightest. Am I the jerk for blowing up on my sister? All because of the way she's acting towards our phone charger. Because after she slandered my name and claimed that I broke the old one, I finally snapped and I told her exactly how I feel. And at this point, I'm not really sure if I took it too far or if I'm justified in any way. Here's how it all went down. Okay, so me, my sister, and my mom all have Android phones. Half a year ago, I bought a new charger, and we've been sharing 2 cables like we always do. We keep one charger downstairs, and my sister keeps hers upstairs, so that we always have a charger on each floor. Now, all of us share the chargers. However, my sister always gets annoyed when we use hers, even though she uses ours when she's not in her room. The actual drama in this scenario started last week on Thursday. After coming home from work, my sister started complaining and whining about how I had apparently broken her charger. The cable does show some use, and the plastic sheath is minimally damaged. Like, there's no wires sticking out, and the charger still works completely fine. It literally is a tiny tear where you can see a little bit of like gray coloring peeking peeking through. Well, my mother heard her, and she actually was the one that admitted that she was the one who broke it. Well, my sister just ignored her and kept accusing me. The next morning, I traveled over 90 minutes to an electronics shop. I bought her a new charger for like $30, and I left it on her bed in the evening after she accused me for a third time. I then took the broken charger in exchange. I told her verbally that the broken charger would now simply belong to me, since she got a brand new one and complained so much about her old destroyed one. Well, during the weekend, she kept taking the broken charger from my room and using it, so I explained to her once more that she should use her new one. But when she repeated this on Monday, I confronted her because I could not understand why she kept using the broken one, which she complained about so much. She then claimed that the old one still belongs to her, but I explained to her that once again, the broken one is now mine, and since everyone has their own charger, she should stop using it, as I did not touch her new one since I bought it. But once again, she just completely ignored me. My mom told me not to make a big deal out of this, and I could use hers if I needed to, but at that point, I just left the room before I could get even angrier. Well, today my sister told my little brother to get her charger from my room just so she can charge her notebook, and it was at this moment that I exploded. I straight up called her out, asking her why she kept on using my broken charger when I literally got her a brand new one that is the exact same model. She then just told me to chill out and that she forgot she had a new one, even though it was openly lying on her desk. Now, being absolutely fed up with her, I yelled at her to keep the broken one too, since she so obviously needs to use two different chargers at the same time, and that I'll just buy myself a new one as well. And now my mom's trying to act like I'm the one that overreacted and that I'm in the wrong. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because I'm seriously so pissed off at this. Okay, first off, no, you are not the jerk. But secondly, I would never buy another charger, and instead I would take the one that I bought for her and use that instead. Like seriously, if she's gonna act like that, well then congratulations. You're gonna get your old charger back and I'm gonna keep my new one. And no, you're never gonna use it ever again. Like this is some crazy behavior. So no, you're not in the wrong because the way your sister's acting is incredibly stupid. Am I the selfish one for not wanting to uproot my life and move in with my wife's family just because her father suddenly passed away? Because right now it's causing a lot of tension, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, for starters, my wife's dad unexpectedly passed away in an accident 3 weeks ago. Her parents were teenagers when they had her, so he was still very young. Financially, they are taken care of through his social security, and his work insurance policies will continue paying out his salary for a few years. The issue is that my wife has two sisters who still live at home. One is a teenager in high school, and the other is in her early 20s, but she suffers from severe bipolar disorder and needs a lot of therapy and a lot of attention. Because of this, after my wife's dad passed away, she immediately convinced herself that she needs to move into her parents' house permanently just to help her mom care for her two sisters. In fact, she already told her entire family that she would move here without even first discussing it with me. We have a 1-year-old daughter together, so it wouldn't just be her moving. Now, I was extremely annoyed with her committing to this without consulting or even considering me at all. But she basically said to me, "Oh, you don't have to come with us," which is not an option for me, as I don't want to be away from my daughter or be in a long-distance marriage. This would essentially require me to leave my job, sell most of our stuff, and break our lease. Our home is 3 hours away. I actually really love my life back home too. I have a good job and I just got a promotion. I'm on a good career trajectory, and the job is honestly easy. It's enjoyable and gives me an amazing work-life balance. The city we currently live in is walkable with a lot of green space. There are parks for my daughter, and I have a solid friend group. I enjoy nature and I love running, and I love going on bike rides, so it's been immensely good for my quality of life. Additionally, my friends are here and my parents live 30 minutes away. My wife also has similar hobbies and values nature and walkability, and has a big friend group here too. By contrast, the area my wife's family lives is extremely suburban. There are no trees, no sidewalks, just subdivisions, and absolutely no quality of life for the things that we typically enjoy as a family. Also, I would have to find a new job and leave my friends and family. My wife comes from a massive Mexican-American family. Several times a week, the family gets together and drinks heavily and stays up super late. And I've been here for 3 weeks and I'm already exhausted from the lifestyle. I appreciate the culture, but at the same time, it's very different from the lifestyle I currently enjoy. Additionally, I don't think it's a place I want to raise my daughter. I always envision a place where she could enjoy nature and ride her bike bike to school, and I'd even offered for her family to move in with us, but they don't want to leave their large extended family and community. My job is currently letting me work remote, but I will have to return home the first week of January to oversee some projects. After that, the near-term plan is for me to work in our hometown 4 days a week, and then come here for the weekends just to be with my family. This will be sustainable for like a few months, but it is not a permanent solution. I don't want to only see my kids 3 days a week during these formative years. I'm in a tough position right now because I want to be supportive of her in this difficult moment of grief, and I love her family and I want to show up for them as well. At the same time, I don't want to move here. I know that if I move here on a personal level, I will be sacrificing a lot of quality of life. I'll be sacrificing proximity to my family and leaving my community. I also feel like I would be depriving my daughter of raising her in a place with a good quality of life. So am I selfish for feeling this way? How can I be a good husband right now while still advocating for my own quality of life? What should I do? Okay, first off, I don't blame you for being like, wait a second, what do you mean I've got to like uproot my life and move there? I don't know about you, but the fact that she said, oh, you don't have to come with us, that kind of felt like a threat, if anything, and it almost sounded like, hey, you can either come with me and be a part of this, or I'm gonna leave you and I'm gonna go there anyways. Oh, and by the way, I'm gonna take my daughter with me. Like, that's a really sketchy way of handling this, and I just don't like the fact that she basically volunteered you to do this. So no, this is not okay. This is not the way you go about doing like life-changing stuff, especially for your family, because I understand that she's grieving and she's going through a lot, but this should not be at the expense of your family dynamics, which in my opinion, it kind of seems like that's exactly what's happening. An entitled jerk at a community dance hall is overly determined that he is going to be taking me home with him. And despite the fact that I've explained to him that I'm not interested because I'm engaged, this guy followed me around the entire time, bothering me and my friends in a way that was incredibly inappropriate. Here's what happened. To start things off, I live in a very rural area, and we have community hall dances every few months that me and the girls always attend together. We stay in our group of girls and always have a good time, but this time it was different. There's always someone hammered at the dance, confusing a community called dance for a bar, but we always ignore whoever it is that's in that stage. Well, last night they didn't give us much room to ignore them. This guy that I've never even seen before walked straight over to our group. Immediately, I see him look me up and down, and then he stood there silently for a moment, giving me direct eye contact. And for reference, eye contact makes me quite uncomfortable. I looked away and continued talking with my friends, but it's here that he starts complimenting my hair. And in my head, I knew exactly what he was trying to do, but I just nodded and said, oh, that's nice of him. Well, he then continues on to say that if he was my boyfriend, he wouldn't leave me alone for any guy to take home. And it's here that I said to him, well, me and my fiance have trust, so that's not a problem. But then he just keeps on going and says to me, oh, well, if it were me, I wouldn't let a girl like you out of my sight. Then he starts telling my other friend that he's gonna help her up, and for reference, she was crouching down because she was cold, but she declined, and he just goes on to say, don't worry, I'm not one of those guys. Me and my friends then just gave each other the look and walked right past the guy to another area. Well, fast forward to 10 minutes later, and I'm dancing with my girls, and we're all having a good time, and at this point, my mom was hitting the dance floor, so I started recording her to send it to my sister. Well, here comes this guy again, and yes, I did get it on video. He practically walks through my mom, pushing her out of the way just to get to me. He comes right beside me, literally shoulder to shoulder, and keep in mind, this is a dance, not a club, but he did not need to be touching me. He leaned into my ear and goes, you can't be recording all of this. And I say to him, well, I'm recording my mom. He then replies to me and says, your mom? And so I point at my mom and I say, yeah, that's my mom. He then changes the subject and says again in my ear, are you single? Which is like, dude, I already answered this once. I said to him, no, I'm not. And he goes on to say, oh, you have a boyfriend? And I said, actually, and I just put my ring right in his face as a response. He then takes a second of awkwardly staring at me and my ring while also still touching me. And if you're wondering why I didn't like move away, he basically had me pinned between him and the table. He then put his hands up and steps away and goes, I respect that, and begins to ask why my fiance isn't there. I then tell him that my fiance is a working man and was at his night shift providing for me. I then cut him off at his last sentence and I tell him, this is me and my girl's song, I'm gonna go dance with them, and I walk past him and I left him standing there awkwardly. Now you might think that he would just give up and move on, but no, that's not at all what happened. He stared at me the entire night. The girl he brought with him comes up to me and tells me that she was trying to explain to him that I'm engaged, but he was absolutely determined to bring me home. But I straight up told her that that is never happening. After 2 of our friends left for the night, I was still hanging around with my friend who was coming back to my place with me. And yeah, I'm sure you probably guessed it at this point, but this guy comes over again. He stands about 2 feet in front of me and starts flirting with my friend. And he kept giving me this look like he's trying to make me jealous. But really, now you're just making multiple girls incredibly uncomfortable. He starts telling my friend, as we were outside for a puff break, that she should go inside because she must be cold if he's freezing out there. Well, we then told him that we were fine, but he was welcome to go back inside if he wanted to. He then starts saying to her that she has to go inside because she will freeze. But I just looked at him and I said, she's fine. And he goes on to say, well, I know she is, but she should go inside. So me and her look at him and walk past him to go inside together. But then behind us, I heard him go, look, I'm just trying to make friends. I'm not trying to be rude. But at this point, we just ignored him and I left a few minutes after that. It's also important to note, because I forgot to mention it earlier, after the first encounter, we told the bouncer to keep an eye on him and left our drinks with a dance coordinator to keep watch, because this guy seemed absolutely determined that he was going to take me home one way or another. And honestly, the way he acted was incredibly creepy. Oh my gosh, this is one of those situations where it's like, dude, this guy needs to learn how to take no for an answer. The original poster said multiple times, like, dude, I'm not interested. You need to leave me alone. Like, go away. You literally gave out every sign I could think of to project to this moron that, yeah, you're not available. You talked about your fiance 2 more times than you needed to. You showed him your ring. You walked away from him. You spent time with your friends. Like, literally, you're avoiding this guy and you're saying no thank you so many times. And yet he can't take a hint and just move on with his life. Like, dude, that's so weird. And it's especially concerning because you know what? I don't blame you for leaving your drinks with the dance coordinator at all, because this guy gives off the vibe as someone who probably would try to like spike your drink to take you home or something like that. So truly, this was a very creepy situation. I'm so sorry that you went through that, but I'm also glad that you got out of there unscathed, because this situation absolutely could have gone bad really quickly. An entitled couple give me a hard time as they are literally trying to return a phone that's not only past our return policy, but also one that clearly has been damaged by some kind of like biohazard. And despite the fact that I tried to explain this to them, they literally refused to take no for an answer, as they escalated this all the way to corporate, even saying they would call the cops if I didn't take their return, putting me in a situation that honestly I never thought I'd ever be in my entire life. Here's how it all went down. So I used to sell cell phones in a mall kiosk, which is a sentence that already explains everything you need to know about the moral landscape of this story. Imagine retail, but remove the walls, add fluorescent lighting that feels personally judgmental, and place it directly between a pretzel stand and a nail salon, so the air is a rotating wheel of sugar, acetone, and despair. Because this is where I learned 2 important truths. 1, people do not read return policies, and number 2, entitled people frequently smell like they are actively rebelling against the concept of soap. Now, I work for a major carrier, and no, I'm not going to name which one, because honestly, they're all the same ones, just wearing different polo shirts. But regardless, we sold phones, plans, accessories, insurance, and the fragile illusion that technology would make people happy. Our return policy was printed on the receipt, the wall, the counter mat, the website, and probably branded onto my soul. 14 days. The phone must be in like new condition. No water damage, no biohazards, and this last part was implied, but you would be surprised how often it needed to be clarified. Well, enter the entitled couple of this story, and for the sake of the story, I'll call them Rick and Denise, because those names feel correct in a cosmic sense. Rick was loud in the way that suggests he confuses volume with authority, and Denise was quieter but sharper, like a knife that has opinions. They arrived together, trailing a smell that hit me a full 3 seconds before they did. It was the kind of odor that makes you briefly consider whether you are actually having a stroke. It was sour, sweet, damp, and layered. Like this was literally a bouquet. You know, if the bouquet was left in a hot car with gym shoes and unresolved anger. Well, Rick walked up and slammed a phone box on the counter in a very not gentle way, because this was a declaration. He said to me, "We're returning this." And he said this already annoyed that I existed. I then smiled my customer service smile, the one that lives somewhere between hostage negotiation and retail therapy. I say to him, "Sure thing, what seems to be the issue?" Denise leaned in and the smell intensified. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this, my eyes watered. She looked at me and said, "It doesn't work." I then asked just to clarify what wasn't working, but she just waved vaguely at the universe and said, "It just doesn't work." Now, the phone in question was a flagship model. It was expensive, it was shiny, and it was currently sticky. I then decided to put on gloves, and no, this was not policy, but instead it was instinct. The screen was smeared with something that I can only describe as organic. Rick then noticed the gloves and said, "What, are you scared of germs?" But it's like, dude, no, I'm scared of yours. I checked the purchase date and it was 28 days ago. I then gently explained the return policy, that it was 14 days instead of 28. Rick then interrupted me halfway through the word 14 and screamed at me, "That's ridiculous, we didn't even really use it." But the phone, dear reader, looked like it had been used to butter toast. Denise then crossed her arms and said, "No one told us that." So I just pointed to the sign. She looked at it like it had personally betrayed her and said, "Well, we didn't read that." And there it is, the heart of entitlement. Reality is optional if it is inconvenient. I explained alternatives like the warranty, the insurance, the manufacturer support. I spoke calmly, kindly, and like one does when attempting to soothe a startled raccoon. But Rick grew louder and Denise grew colder. The smell grew stronger, and possibly emboldened by their confidence, it clung to the counter, sinking into the laminated surface like a curse. Rick then leaned forward and said, "You're gonna take this back." But I explained again that I couldn't do that. He then demanded a manager, but I was the manager on duty. He then demanded a real manager, so I called my district manager. Rick then complained loudly into the mall air about how customer service was dead, and young people were lazy, and also somehow responsible for the downfall of Western civilization. Well, the district manager backed me up. Policy is policy. Rick then hung up and said, "Fine, then just give us a new one." But of course, I said no. Denise then sighed dramatically and said, "This is unbelievable. We spent so much money here." But I thought to myself, no you don't. You bought one phone and some off-brand charger cable that you returned last year smelling like soap. They then left in a huff, but the smell stayed behind. I wiped the counter twice, and while the disinfectant fought bravely, it died on the battlefield. Even my coworker gagged. The pretzel stand guy even asked us if we had plumbing issues. Now, I really thought that was the end of it, but no, I was completely wrong. Because 2 days later, Rick returned alone, this time with confidence and a bag, a plastic grocery bag, and honestly, my soul left my body briefly and then returned with a migraine. He put the bag on the counter and said, "I talked to corporate." And guess what? This was absolutely a lie, but I decided to let him continue. He pulled the phone out of the bag and it was wet. And not like water wet, but like damp. Like it had been stored in a basement with feelings. The smell was worse and somehow more personal, like it knew my name. He said to me, "I want a refund." But I straight up asked him why the phone was wet, and he said, "That's none of your business." But unfortunately, it was very much my business. So I explained again that the return window had passed, and also the phone was damaged. He then said that it was like that when he bought it, but when I heard that, I just stared at him, and he stared back at me. We shared a moment where reality tried to reassert itself and just completely failed. Well, Rick then raised his voice again. People started staring, and the nail salon even paused mid-acrylic. Denise was not there this time, but her spirit lingered in the smell. But respectfully, calmly, and professionally, I refused. Well, at this point, Rick then threatened to call the police. And you know what? I encouraged him to do so, mostly because I wanted a third party to experience this odor and validate my suffering. Well, predictably, he didn't end up calling the police, but instead he threw the phone back into the bag and stormed off again. And yeah, his odor definitely lingered once again. A week later, a corporate complaint came through. Rick had written a novel. According to him, I was rude, discriminatory, and refused to service because of his appearance. And honestly, this was fascinating because I had not mentioned appearances at all. Smell is not an appearance. Smell is a presence, like a force. Well, corporate investigated and they asked for details. So I provided timestamps, policy citations, photos of the phone, all of which were taken with gloves on and regret in my heart, and my district manager added notes about prior incidents. And with that, Rick was flagged as a repeat offender. Apparently he had done this at 3 other locations. One note simply read odor issues, and my god do I believe him. Corporate sided with us, and Rick was banned from returns at our location. They sent a polite email explaining the policy, and Denise responded with several paragraphs in all caps, but corporate did not reply. Well, the final chapter came a month later. Rick and Denise returned together. They approached the kiosk and I braced myself because holy crap, it's happening again. Rick opened his mouth, but Denise stopped him. She sniffed, she frowned and said, "We're not buying anything here." And then they left. The air improved immediately and I felt literally 10 years younger. I still think about them sometimes, about how entitlement rots things, and not just policies, but spaces. How refusing to read rules does not make you special. It just makes you loud, and how some smells are just not physical, but also philosophical. I no longer work in cell phone sales, and my nose has mostly recovered, but I still read return policies religiously, and I shower daily, because living in a society is a shared agreement, and soap is definitely part of the deal. Oh my god. gosh, the original poster is like my hero because holy crap, this could have gone so bad, but it really did work out. Because think about it for a second. Their district manager and corporate both agreed with you. And at some jobs, like that's not always going to happen. That is really lucky if you ask me. But as someone who's worked in customer service in some degree, whether it's in like the restaurant business or like retail, people like Rick and Denise are very common, and it really sucks to say that. I hate that old saying of like, oh, the customer's always right, because no, the customer doesn't know anything. The customer is stupid, impulsive, and very impatient. And sure, that's a stereotype, but then you have people like Rick and Denise enforcing that stereotype. Like, holy crap, this is not anybody's fault that they completely destroyed their phone. Because I guarantee you, anyone who sold that phone to them most likely had a scripted statement at the end of the transaction that said, hey, you got 14 days to see if you like the phone. Like, that's literally how it works in sales, and instead of listening, they just said, oh yeah, whatever. Only to then come back like a month later smelling like crap and being like, we want to return. Yes, the phone smells terrible. What's the problem? Like, dude, this guy's trying to be like, oh, the phone was already wet when I bought it. It's like, dude, you bought a soggy phone and then kept it for a month? What is wrong with you? Why would you not bring that back immediately? So good for the original poster for like handling this with such grace. Like, I think they did a great job taking this down and essentially notating everything that happened, because these people were so far out of line, it's honestly not even funny. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Would I be overreacting for not wanting to go home for Christmas next week after my baby-obsessed parents drunkenly text my husband begging us to have kids? Because now, after it seems like they went behind my back to try and convince me in a roundabout way, I now feel like I just can't go home because I'm so pissed off. And at this point, I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. To start things out, I'm a 31-year-old female and I don't want kids. I have felt this way ever since I was in my early 20s. No shade to anybody who wants to have kids. It just doesn't seem like something that I would enjoy. Also, this is well known in my family, and often I'm the butt of the joke when it comes to like me hating children. And of course, I don't hate kids, I just don't want them. I also have been struggling with my mental health, and recently I'm switching my medications. And this is because I've got a lot of messed up things from my past. My husband feels the exact same way about kids, and lately we have been considering maybe in a few years, but I am still leaning heavily towards no children. Well, my husband and I got married in July. My parents have been married for 33 years and have my brother and I very young. Ever since I started dating my husband, which has been about 5 years, they have been bringing up children and pressuring me to have kids. I've calmly told them many times that this is not a topic I want to talk about, as I have already made up my mind. Same with my husband. This happens though every time we see them in person, which is probably 2 or 3 times a year at holidays. Every time I say I don't want kids, they say, oh yes you do. They've also brought it up over the phone to me and have talked about it to my brother. But ever since we got married, it seems like it's intensified. I've remained steady with the fact that I do not want children, and it does not seem plausible for my life right now. Well, a few days ago, my husband informed me that my father drunkenly texted him the following message. He said to him, I'm currently 3 sheets to the wind, and maybe it's just the holidays, but any movement on grandkids? We have a lot of love to give, and you guys would be great parents. Recently, we found out our estate is now worth like $2 million. And when I was told this, I lost it. I now see that they're going around me to try and convince my husband to convince me to have kids, and it feels like a giant slap in the face. It feels like this is the last carrot that they are dangling over me for their love, and that they will never truly be happy unless I give birth to a child. My parents have never respected my decisions and have always controlled my life, and this feels like the last straw for me. Now, I am supposed to go home for our Christmas celebration next week, but honestly, I don't want to do it. I don't want to betray my husband's trust by telling my dad that I saw the text message, but this is so far over the line in my opinion that I'm just wanting to blow something up. So am I overreacting here if I just don't want to go home next week? Am I overreacting if I bring this up to them? I'm so exhausted, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, first of all, I don't think it's really breaking trust if your husband showed you the message. Like, you guys are married after all, so you can definitely do that if you want to. What is a breach of trust is your parents still going over this again and again. Like, seriously, give it a rest. The original posters made up their mind. They don't want to have kids. Like, just leave it alone. So no, you're not overreacting. Like, if I was in your shoes, I would be pretty pissed off as well. Especially about the fact that they're literally going behind your back. Like, in my opinion, that just seems incredibly tone deaf and very rude. And overall, just completely inappropriate. Am I overreacting for being annoyed that my in-laws keep shutting off their hot water right before I'm about to take a shower? Because this keeps happening and it's honestly starting to piss me off. Here's what's going on. Okay, for starters, we're staying with my wife's parents for a few days over Christmas. And the fact that this is even happening is incredibly annoying. On the first day, on Christmas, I showered after lunch when everyone left, and the water was ice cold. I assumed that everyone had used it up, so I just didn't even question it. On day 2, I then learned that they actually turned their hot water heater off between 10 o'clock in the morning and 5 o'clock p.m. Nobody mentioned this beforehand, but okay, at least I know now, right? On day 3 though, I realized that no, that's not right. At 9 o'clock in the morning, I find out the real cutoff is actually 8 o'clock in the morning and not 10. So again, I get stuck with a cold shower because the schedule wasn't communicated, and apparently it just keeps changing. When I'm understandably annoyed, the vibe I get isn't, oh yeah, we should have told you. It's basically a shrug and them saying, well, that's just how it is. My wife also didn't help the situation or question why this wasn't communicated to us. She totally just rolls over at the slightest bit of confrontation. Meanwhile, her stepdad only participates in anything involving food, won't play games, won't watch anything, won't do anything with us, but will leave the house to drink with his friends and not invite us. And somehow I'm being made out as the awkward one because I've stepped out of the room a couple of times to stay sane. So here I am, 3 days, 3 freezing showers, 0 heads up, and I'm supposedly the problem for not loving surprise ice baths. So am I the jerk for thinking that house guests should maybe be told the hot water shut off just so they don't get ambushed by it? Because right now I'm very frustrated and I don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, that is so stupid. Like seriously, these people are absolutely out of their minds if they think that they're not the problem here. First off, if you're gonna be doing stuff like that, that is something you absolutely want to tell people, especially during like the winter months in the north. Like I've lived up north and it can get very cold, and a warm shower is sometimes the only relief you're gonna get. So to wake up in the morning and be like, okay, time for an ice bath, like no, dude, that sucks. That really is not fun. Like I would really hate that altogether. So no, you're not overreacting, you're not the jerk for being pissed off, because this really is their fault for not telling you. Because at the end of the day, this is very unfair and they should have talked to you. Am I the jerk for implying that my coworker was very irresponsible after I basically found out that he does literally nothing in his home life? Because right now I feel like I might have put my foot in my mouth and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, for a bit of background, I work as a night shift custodian at my local high school. Most of my coworkers are actually pretty cool except for one person in particular. This one guy, who I will call Bill for the sake of the story, is constantly glued to his phone, which by the way, he keeps the volume turned up all the way without headphones on, even when he's working. Bill cuts corners, lies about work he's done, rants about politics to anyone too polite to tell him to go away, and is completely unaware of his surroundings due to his face always being glued to his phone. The kids were out for school, so we all took advantage and did some deep cleaning of the school while there were no kids to get in the way. Another coworker had just mopped the cafeteria with a product that works like floor wax in that you literally have to let it dry before you can walk on it. Well, Bill was walking around the school with his face in his phone and literally walked right across it while it was still wet, leaving footprints and causing other coworkers to have to go over it again quickly before it dried with footprints on it. And that's just one example of the piece of work that he is. Another piece of background is that him and his sister, who I will call Carol, both live with their dad. She's 22 and he's 25, and she works harder than he does. For a bit of information, one of our roommates is moving out in February, so we have a room opening up. I actually asked Carol if she wanted to move in with us, and she turned it down, stating that she can't because she helps their dad with the bills and keeps the house running because her brother won't. And those are her words, not mine. Well, knowing all of this and my own personal experience with Bill, I already have a little resentment because Carol is a sweetheart, and I hate that she's in that position. Anyways, on to the story. So we're all taking a rest, and Carol makes some comment about some responsibility she has that week. And I don't really remember what it was, but I think it had something to do with the laundry. But then Bill made some comment about her doing her house jobs or something like that. I don't exactly remember. I only remember that I couldn't stop myself from saying something this time. Before I could talk myself out of it, I blurted out to him and I said, "Why is your 22-year-old sister more responsible than you?" His response was to say, "Because I was never told how to do anything. I was told just to figure it out." And that comment only made me resent him even more because that just sounds like an excuse. Like, when in the world didn't you ever figure out how to do anything? He lives with his dad and sister and basically lets them do everything for him. What does he have to do with his time and money? Play video games and gamble? and binge the news on the very phone he's constantly glued to? I meant what I said, and I did feel good at the time, but I'm still regretting it, because first of all, I learned more about who he is than I really wanted to know, and secondly, I still have to work with this guy, and I don't want this to affect how we work together. I'm starting to think that I should have just kept my mouth shut, so honestly, I'm kind of wondering, am I the jerk here? Because at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I think it would be a massive mistake to do anything further than that, because holy crap, this person is a coworker, and it kind of sounds like you're going to be stuck working together, and there is no point in burning a bridge that is going to be a nightmare to fix later on. So no, you're not really the jerk for expressing your opinions, but I think going any further from here would only cause problems, and that in my opinion is not worth the hassle. Did I overreact by leaving my parents' place after my parents basically called my partner a loser? Because I'm honestly really offended and I just don't know if I made a mistake here. What should I do? Okay, so I just had the biggest blowout with my parents to the point where my partner and I left their place to go back home. This is still very fresh, so I'm sorry if some things don't make sense, but I need any insights I can get to this situation. For a bit of backstory, my partner and I are living in Europe. Both of us work and we're both working ourselves up the ladder. We also rent a little place in a city that we love and that we want to stay in. We're happy with our life, yes, and it would be nice to own our own place, but with the current economic situation in this world, we just simply can't do that right now, which as mentioned, we're both working on it. We visited my parents right before Christmas, and we were all happy and having a good time, but then on the 23rd, my partner's aunt passed away, which slightly dampened the vibe, but we didn't let it get to us. Now this is where the blowout really begins. My mom just hit me earlier with a statement where she basically said that she's super disappointed in my partner. She says that all he's been doing is sitting on the sofa and playing on his Nintendo Switch. She then continued to go down the list of stuff she's disappointed about, and this honestly was sort of out of the blue. She then says I've become too comfortable with where I'm at in life, that I have no ambitions anymore, and that my partner is like my biological dad, which is a hard boundary to cross to even mention that guy to me, because he attempted to mistreat me as a child, if you know what I mean. Now, my question is, did we overreact by leaving? I'm very happy with my life, and sure, it could always be better, but we are working on it without destroying our lives. We're paying our rent and our bills and pretty much everything. Like, we are independent. And yes, my partner did sit all day on the sofa and played some games, but that's because my parents didn't do anything that we had planned. My mom said that she wanted him to take initiative, but he is still a house guest and isn't going to be telling my parents what to do. Also, we have ambitions. We want our own home and a reasonable paying job. So honestly, are we in the wrong here, or is there something right about what they said? Because right now I don't know what to do and I'm feeling very torn apart. Okay, if anyone says something like that to me when I'm visiting them for Christmas, I would probably get pissed off as well and probably want to leave, because that is so inappropriate, it's not even funny. And what is your mom talking about? Oh, all he did was sit on the couch and play the Nintendo Switch. Like, she does know this is like Christmas break, right? Like, what are we talking about right now? You guys aren't doing anything wrong, you're trying to be responsible with your lives, but from the sounds of it, it seems like nothing you ever do will be enough for your parents, and that really sucks. So no, you're not the jerk here, you didn't do anything wrong, and you definitely didn't overreact by leaving, because if I was in your shoes, I would have done the same thing. My entitled supervisor steals a spot at a conference in Hawaii that my coworker was supposed to be attending with me, but instead he got shut out by this crappy supervisor. So I decided to get some very petty revenge by quite literally canceling his hotel reservation at the conference, as I quite literally ruined this guy's trip in a way that he will never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so I worked at a company for almost 15 years in the 90s and early 2000s, and towards the end of my time there, we hired a supervisor. Now, I didn't report to him, but he would read documents on my desk when I wasn't there, and would sometimes make copies of my product and give it to his subordinates, telling them to modify it to fit what they were working on. Now, to be completely honest, I didn't care, since we all worked on the same company, but it was the sneakiness and doing it behind my back that really irritated me. He was also an obnoxious person, blowing his horn and basking in the success of his guys way too much, and he was really not well liked, if I'm being completely honest. A coworker who I will call Bert for the sake of the story, the both of us had been attending a conference in Hawaii every year. We were good friends and hung out together with others from the conference that we met once a year, and it was a reward for doing our jobs. The conference was at a resort hotel in Waikiki Beach, but the rooms were limited and would be sold out by the time the conference began. So basically, if you don't make the reservations in advance, you would have to stay somewhere else. Now, the supervisor, who I will call Tom, saw the travel authorization form on my desk that I had to submit for the conference, and then filled one out for himself to go. He was then told that there was only funding to send 2 2 people, so he went up the management chain to get approval for himself. And because he outranked me and my coworker, one of us had to withdraw our paperwork to go. Well, we literally flipped a coin and I won. I traveled frequently and I had accumulated lots of frequent flyer miles. Because the flight time was over a certain number of hours from the East Coast to Honolulu, we were authorized to travel in business class, which was a huge benefit. I didn't want to sit next to Tom, so I used my miles to upgrade from business class to first class. And I didn't even tell Tom about my upgrade, and our travel agent was able to get reservations for the both of us at the resort hotel. Well, Tom being Tom, let everyone in the office know that he was going to Hawaii, bragging about flying in business class and staying at a Hawaiian resort. He also told me that I was expected to introduce him to the conference regulars, take him to the best restaurants, and show him a good time. It got to be a bit too much, and I intended to avoid him as much as possible while we were there. We were flying out on Sunday and flying back on an overnight flight the next Saturday. Well, Saturday afternoon, I called to confirm my airline reservation, which is something I had learned to do over my years of frequent travel. Asking about seats, I was told that there was no business class or first class seats available, but the coach section did still have some. And when I heard this really got me thinking. So I decided to call from a payphone later that day, and I changed Tom's reservations to a business class flight on Monday. And then on top of that, I called the hotel and I canceled his room. I checked in at the airport Sunday morning, and then I went to the first class lounge to wait for my flight to be called. When the announcement came over the loudspeakers, I grabbed my stuff and I went straight to the gate. They were boarding the first class passengers as I arrived there. So I got on the plane, I found my seat, and I ordered a drink. When most of the plane was boarded, Tom came through the jetway looking furious. Seeing me, he stopped and started ranting about the airline messing up his reservation. The flight attendant quickly told him that he needed to be seated. He then asked her if there were any empty seat other than coach, and she apologized, but the premier cabins were full. Well, twice during the flight, he came up to my seat to complain some more. The agent at the counter was able to change his ticket to this flight, but could only get him a ticket in coach. In fact, he was assigned to the middle seat in the center row of 5 seats, and simply couldn't get comfortable. But nonetheless, he ranted on, and even asked if I would switch with him for the last half of the flight. Well, I politely declined, and I didn't see him again until we were at the luggage carousel to get our bags. We then took the courtesy shuttle to the hotel and waited in line to check in. Now, he was in check-in next to me when he learned that he had no reservation at the sold-out Hawaiian resort, and when he was told this, he went ballistic. A manager was summoned and took him to another computer station about 20 feet away, but you know what? I didn't stick around, and instead I went up to my room. Well, fast forward, and my room phone rang about 15 minutes later, and it was Tom pitching a fit. He told me that he needed to share my room with me since it was where the conference was. He complained that the manager was only able to secure a room for him at a motel that was about a 10-minute walk away. And although I had 2 queen-size beds, I told him that my room only had 1 bed, conveniently leaving out the fact that I had a balcony with ocean view or the separate living room area. Now, I did see Tom during all the sessions, and I did take pity on him, and he hung out with me at the cocktail social after the first day of sessions and tagged along with me and my companions for dinner. We flew back Saturday evening, and since he was actually in business class this time, he didn't come up to complain as much as he did before. Well, when I got back, I did confess to Bert at lunch a few days after returning, and he said that it kind of made up for not being able to travel with me, and honestly, with all things considered, I have to agree. Okay, I love this story so much because you know for a fact this drove Tom up a wall. First of all, this guy is a scumbag for pushing Bert out of this trip, but also I cannot stand people who act like this, dude. They're so like high and mighty and full of themselves, and they're trying to act like they're some kind of hotshot just because they use management to get their way and like take someone else out of a trip they were not even going to be a part of in the first place. Like Bert had every right to be there and not Tom. Tom's a jerk for doing that. So it's already really just awful that you have to deal with this guy for like a few days. Not to mention the fact that he's letting everybody know about the fact like, oh, I'm going to be in business class. Look how important I am. When it's like, dude, you were not even supposed to be here. Like, get out of here, man. So the fact that you screwed with him this much and pretty much just ruined this trip for him entirely, like that is hilarious in my opinion, and I love that. So yeah, good for you for getting back at this guy. He clearly deserved it because the way he got on this trip in the first place was very messed up. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for wanting to bring in our neighbor's package while she goes away for the holidays? Because right now my girlfriend's very pissed off at me and says that I'm not allowed to do this, and now I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 20-year-old male and I live in an apartment complex where the buildings are pretty well divided up. There are 4 doors to each floor, each subsection with its entrance from outside. My girlfriend and I moved in a few months back and haven't interacted with any neighbors. I was going upstairs when I ran into a girl that lives across from me, and she said that she had a package on back order and asked if I could take it in for her while she goes home for the holidays. Our complex is in a very safe neighborhood in a very safe city, but anyone could still walk in and take it since the main doors to each subsection don't have locks. Without really thinking twice, I told her I would bring the package in since it did seem like the neighborly thing to do. Once the package arrived, I told my girlfriend I would bring it in, and she told me that I wouldn't be allowed to do that. Her reasoning was that we don't know what's in the package, we don't know the neighbor, and we don't know when they will be back and need the package back from us. She says that in apartment complexes, bringing in packages isn't standard behavior. She even said she would just take it back out if I brought it in. I tried explaining that since I told the girl I would bring in the package, I wanted to follow through. I also don't imagine there's anything heinous inside it, and even if there was, I wouldn't mind holding on to it for a week or two over the holidays. Like, am I really in the wrong for wanting to bring it in even after our argument? I mostly worry that if I give in and leave the package in the hallway, that someone will steal it. I also don't want the neighbor to think poorly of me if she comes back and the package is sitting outside, even though she trusted me to bring it in. So am I the jerk for wanting to bring the package in anyways? Because right now I don't know what to do. No, I don't think you would be the jerk at all, especially if it's like a small package. Like, I don't see any problem with just putting it at your front door and leaving it there. Like, right when you walk into your house. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Now, I do think your girlfriend has a point where it's like, dude, we do not know that lady. Why are you taking random packages without, like, getting more information? But from the sounds of it, it doesn't seem like this is some sketchy person, and I just don't think there's gonna be a problem. So no, you wouldn't be the jerk for helping them out, and I think it would be the right thing to do. Am I the jerk for not wanting to give my brother my car after he essentially destroyed and totaled the one that my dad gave him? Because right now, my boyfriend's saying that I should give it to him, but honestly, I don't think that's a good idea. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 31-year-old female and I have an older car. It was the first car that was ever like truly mine, and my dad bought it for me. I got that car in 2014, but in 2020, I purchased my current vehicle due to constant issues with the old car. Now, my younger brother is 3 years younger than me, and in 2019, he was struggling to get his life started. At the time, he was around 23 years old. I got him a job at the company I was working at and essentially begged the company to bring him on. I then moved him from out of state to live with me and my boyfriend. The job was a work from home position, so I trained him and we both work from home. And this was the most money he's ever made in his life. For reference, he came from the auto industry as a mechanic and minimum wage jobs. Now, the company really liked him, and we even flew to the company's home state for a Christmas celebration, and they were happy to have him. Well, at the time, things were going great, and his girlfriend even moved in with us. When my boyfriend and I decided it was time to move in 2020, my brother asked if he and his girlfriend could rent from me and stay in the house. And for clarification, I own the property. So I said yes, and that they would just have to cover the mortgage and utilities, which came out to be about $1,300 a month, and this would cover a 2-bedroom, 2-bath townhouse. And when I offered this, they said yes. Well, fast forward, and my brother starts slacking at work to the point that he isn't even responding to me or our boss, who, by the way, is the owner of the entire company. I even started to have to pick up his slack and cover for him, and my god, I was so stressed out. It was a work from home job, and he decided to try and do other things while on the clock. So, needless to say, he was fired. At this point, we had already moved out, and I went by the townhouse one day only to find a hole in every single wall. The house was completely trashed. And mind you, this was the very first house I've ever bought in my life. I mean, my god, I was so upset. Eventually, they couldn't keep paying the bills, and I told them that they had to leave. So I fixed the property up and I put it on Airbnb. Fast forward to about 6 months ago, and my brother finally decided to move back home with my dad after years of living in his car and all this other stuff. And now he's 28 years old. My dad had an old car that he wasn't really using, and so he decided to spend about $2,000 to fix it up and gift it to my brother so that he would have a fresh start and a way to get to work. And I kid you not, 2 days later, he got drunk and crashed into a house, with the car being completely totaled. Like, this guy has to go to trial and all this other stuff. He has no respect for my parents, he constantly lies, and overall is just not the best person. During Christmas, when I was visiting my dad's place, I mentioned selling my old car. Well, he said that he would buy it from me, but I just ignored him. When we got home, I told this to my boyfriend, and he starts saying that I would probably only get about $1,000 for it, and it's better to just keep it in the family if anything else. He then said that I should ship it to my dad's place, who is several states away, so that my brother can use it. And if I'm being completely honest, I think this is absurd. First of all, my dad bought the car for me and not the family, and I also really need the money right now, and my boyfriend's not paying my bills. He said he regrets selling his first car and wishes that he kept it, but I don't care, and I don't think my brother deserves yet another handout, especially from me. I really should be able to do what I please with my car without being guilt-tripped. So am I the jerk here? Because right now I just don't know if I'm in the wrong. Okay, based on what you're describing, there's no way I would ever give this guy your car, because I think that's just a bad idea. This guy clearly doesn't appreciate the gifts that he's given, and chances are he's probably just going to destroy this one as well. So no, you're not the jerk for not wanting to give him your car, or for even trying to keep it in the family, which is a stupid thing to do in my opinion, because you know for a fact your brother's just going to take advantage of it and not appreciate it, and that is not fair for you in the slightest. Am I overreacting by being upset at my boyfriend? As my boyfriend is so upset that I can fix things around the house, but he can't. And even though he's never said that to me specifically, it honestly is coming off that way, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. So we've been together for 2 years and living together for the last 4 months. Now for a bit of context for this story, our fuel tank ran bone dry. We live in the deep north and rely on fuel for our heat. So I called in a favor and I got our tank filled. My boyfriend put on his overalls, grabbed a multi-tool, and went into the basement to light the furnace. He went up and down the stairs a few times over an hour before sitting at the table just to eat some food. I even overheard him calling a friend asking them to come by with a wrench. Well, I grab a socket and the bit and I quietly sneak downstairs. The fuel's been out for a couple of months at most, and basically, long story short, I bled the line intermittently in between light ignitions until she ran clear. No air, no foam, well, no brainer. After 5 minutes, he came downstairs and says that his buddy is on his way with a wrench and says that I'm doing it wrong and bleeding too much. But it's like, oh, okay, sorry for being extra careful to not flood the pump, buddy. I then just keep doing what I'm doing, and after a couple of minutes, I close the valve and press the button, and eventually she fires up. He then said to me, "You didn't want to try it my way," and then storms off. And then last week, my truck pan heater plug snapped. It literally just broke at the plug end from the sheer cold. But he said that he wanted to look after this for me since I've been so busy. Well, 2 days later, and he said it can't be fixed and that I need a book with a mechanic. I then woke up early on December 24th, and I snuck out to the hardware store to grab a plug end. And you know what? I finished the work in 20 minutes in negative 40 degrees Celsius weather. When I shared with him what I did, I was so excited. I'm pretty handy, but that generally doesn't fall until electrical-based work. When I told him what I did, he responded with so much disdain. He said to me, "Oh, good, I was going to do that. I just didn't have the wire snippers." Meanwhile, I was happy to do it, and I thanked him for at least trying. Now, his reaction actually hurt me and put a damper on the Christmas morning. I told him the following day that as much as I appreciate his willingness, I don't need him to do these acts of service, and it actually hurts me when he diminishes my skills or just doesn't even ask me for advice or tools when he's trying to accomplish something. Like, why are you calling a friend for? Your girlfriend, the apparent love of your life and best friend, is just a spit away. And you're in luck, buddy. She's a pretty decent hand. In the last 4 months, there have been so many instances just like this. The bathroom exhaust fan, the garage door opener, the lawnmower, the iron gate, etc. And there's more than this, but I just can't remember them all. Every time it's the exact same. He tries to fix things of his own volition, doesn't ask for help, and we are way beyond soft gestures of recommendations, and instead just takes a dump on the bed and stomps around about it. I've tried to work collectively with him too, but it's always so chaotic. He's always making it so personal and taking it so personally. It's not that deep. Information and resources are universal. I just don't get it. And it's not cute. Like, I'm actually starting to become really resentful. Like, why can't he embrace the part of me that is a half grease monkey handy woman? I'm not spending the rest of my life or the rest of my lease pretending to be something I'm not, sneaking around to hardware stores and walking around on eggshells just so I don't destroy his masculinity or whatever. So am I overreacting right now? Because seriously, I don't know what to do. Okay, this is one of those scenarios where clearly he feels emasculated, and this is absolutely not the original poster's fault. Like, holy crap, if I had a girlfriend who could do like mechanical work like that, I would never complain. Dude, I can't do any of that. I'd be like, oh my gosh, absolutely you can handle it. Like, honey, I will absolutely hold the flashlight for you. Give me a second. Like, this guy's clearly jealous that you're better at this stuff than he is. And instead of like admitting it, or at least like passing it off to you and being like, hey, you can handle it, or like, hey, show me how to do it, he wants to act weird about it. And like, there's just no reason for that. So no, you're not overreacting. This guy's being a giant baby, and this is not your problem. Am I overreacting for not letting my father stay with us anymore after he woke my daughter up at 1 in the morning just so she could make him a plate of food? Because right now I am very furious and very pissed off, as my father literally refuses to apologize, saying that he shouldn't have to apologize to kids and that he doesn't feel like he's done anything wrong, putting me and the rest of my family in this really awkward position because right now I seriously just don't know what to do anymore. Here's what's happening. Okay, to start things out, I have 3 kids. I have a girl and twin boys. My dad is in his 60s, and he's been staying with us because his pensioner apartment was found to have lead in it. And I just need to say that I'm not sure if you have these in the United States or in Europe. They're these like small subsidized senior units for people who've worked certain types of jobs, just for a bit of context. Now, he will likely not be able to go back until like the middle of February. It's also important to note that my dad is very grouchy. Having him around can be really stressful, but we managed through Christmas. In fact, the kids had a really great time with him after dinner. But then last night happened. And it's important to know for this next part that I'm a really light sleeper, but at around 1 o'clock in the morning, I heard loud banging in the hallway, and it sounded urgent. I thought one of my kids was hurt or something like that. So I jumped out of bed and I got out there. It even woke my husband up. Well, when I went out there, I found my dad standing outside my 17-year-old daughter's room, banging on her door. I asked him what he was doing, and he said he was trying to wake her up so she could heat up some Christmas leftovers for him. Now, when I heard this, I got very upset because I thought after having to stay with us and sharing Christmas so beautifully, he would at least be less entitled than his usual self. I told him he cannot simply wake my kids up for something like that. Now, my dad is a very traditional man, whatever that means. Ever since my mom and him separated, my sisters and I have joked that he would starve to death with food in the fridge. He genuinely believes he does not need to do anything around the house. So, of course, he was very upset when I told him no. I told him just come to the kitchen and serve himself the leftovers from the containers in the fridge. But I told him he could just microwave it himself. And sure, he did it, but he was still very annoyed. Now, this morning, I expected him to say sorry to my daughter, but he said he doesn't need to apologize to children. But when he said that, I told him that he needed to leave. I told him he had to call one of my sisters because he would not be staying here. My daughter later told me that the reason he was banging on the door was because she had already opened the door, said no to what he asked, and then locked the door. Now, my sisters are angry with me because none of them want to take him in. They live much farther away, and so they just don't want to drive to pick him up. My mom also lives with one of my sisters, so that is also another problem. I'm now writing this at 11 o'clock p.m. the next night after a bad phone call with my mom. He left close to 6 o'clock p.m. to visit a friend and has not come back since. And while I am worried, I also just don't want him here. My mom is mad that I let him leave to some place that we don't know, but also doesn't want me to drop them off with them. So am I being overdramatic here? He was being nice and complaining less before this. Should I call him up and bring him back home? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I think your dad absolutely needs to move out. If you're gonna be living under someone else's roof, then you need to follow their rules. I don't care what it is, and basic respect and human decency absolutely is one of them. Does this guy really expect someone to wake up at 1 in the morning and heat up some food for him in the microwave? Like, are you kidding me right now? That is so easy to do. Like, this is so stupid. This guy really thinks he's entitled to all the women bending over hand and foot just to like make sure he's taken care of. And that is so bizarre to me. I don't understand that, and it's like, dude, you really can take care of yourself. You don't need a woman to wake up in the middle of the night and feed you just because you're a traditional man. Which, I don't know about you, but there's nothing traditional about that. If anything, it's oppressive and incredibly rude. So no, you didn't overreact. I would be kicking this guy out as well. Because anybody who's going to disrespect my family members like that absolutely needs to take a hike and get a better attitude or find some other place to live. Because you're doing this guy a huge favor, and in my opinion, if he can't act right, then I agree. It is absolutely time for him to go. My neighbor legitimately thinks that I'm running a theft ring, and this is all based on the fact that I get a lot of deliveries throughout the day for my small business. Things got so bad that even upper management of the building I live in came in to check on me as they got complaints about suspicious activity, putting me in a situation that honestly feels so personal that I just don't know what to do now. Here's what's going on. Okay, for starters, I work from home and I order supplies for my small business online, meaning that I get packages like 3 or 4 times a week. This is normal stuff, by the way. We're talking things like shipping materials, product supplies, and the occasional personal items. Now, my neighbor recently approached me in the hallway and asked me what these packages were all about. I then explained I run an online store and he just nods suspiciously. I think to myself, okay, weird, but whatever. Then last week, building management knocked on my door saying that they got a complaint about suspicious activity in my unit. They literally asked if they could come in and look around, but I said no, because that felt like a violation of my privacy, and thankfully they seemed understanding. Well, I found out yesterday from another neighbor that this guy has been telling people in the building that he thinks I'm stealing packages and reselling them. And it's like, dude, are you kidding me right now? Everything I order has my name on it. It comes directly to my apartment, and I have a literal business license. I then confront him about it, and he just said to me, it just seems suspicious that you get so many deliveries, and that people should be careful. I showed him my business Instagram with 15,000 followers, and he literally said to me, oh, that could be fake. Well, in response to this, I reported him to management for harassment, but they said unless he's directly threatening me, there's nothing they can do about it. So at this point, I'm so angry. Like, can someone please tell me I'm not being unreasonable here? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, holy crap, that is so annoying. This guy literally is one of those people who just can't mind their own business, and instead of just walking past these packages that show up at your house, he tries to act like, oh, you're doing something illegal in there, I just know it. Like, what a busybody and what a weirdo. So no, you're not doing anything wrong, you are not unreasonable here, because from the sounds of it, your neighbor's being very rude, and I just would hate to deal with that. My entitled mother comes to visit me, but only books a one-way ticket, as she had no intention of going home and instead demanded that I stay with her for what she said would just be a few more days. But instead of bending to her will, and after reflecting on the way she treated me as a child, I said to her absolutely not, and instead drove her straight to the airport and dropped her off, as she seriously put me in a very difficult position that I definitely didn't want to be in the first place. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that this really still weighs on me, and I'm just not sure if I made a mistake or not. For a bit of background, my mom was awful growing up. Things got so bad that at 12 years old, I left the home through the courts and moved in with my dad. And that decision fractured our family. On the court paperwork under name of child, she wrote something like, oh, I have no son. And I've carried that with me ever since then. And I had little to no contact with her after that. I had maybe contact when I was 17, again in my early 20s, and not consistently until much later. I'm now almost 40 years old, and I spent over 20 years drinking heavily. But finally, after getting sober in 2018, I made an effort to reconnect with my family, including my mom. She's now closer to 70 years old and has zero contact with 2 of her 3 kids. Now, reconnecting was not easy. When I asked if she ever reflected on the way she treated me, she told me that I was an adult and I needed to let it go already. And that was really a turning point for me. I realized any forgiveness would be one-sided. If I wanted peace, it was on me. Since then, our relationship has been rocky but present. We've had family reunions and even traveled overseas together for 3 weeks, and we argue often, usually over small things, but we stayed in contact until this. Last summer, I invited her to my city to see a band that she's loved ever since I was young. The plan was simple. She would arrive on Wednesday, we would go to the concert on Thursday, and she would fly out to visit my sisters on Friday, and I would leave early Saturday for my own trip. And you know what? She agreed to all of this. But when she arrived, she mentioned she had only bought a one-way ticket and that she would book the Friday flight later on. And honestly, that really made me uneasy. And I reminded her several times to make sure it was booked. I thought it was clear in my wording and tone that I didn't want anyone staying in my house while I was gone. Well, Friday came along and the concert was fine, but then she told me that she still hadn't bought a plane ticket yet. And now with prices having gone up, she planned to stay a few extra days while I was away. Well, I told her plainly, I'm leaving at 5 o'clock in the morning tomorrow, and you need to get on that plane. I even offered to cover the extra cost. But when I said this, she refused to do so, and instead invited herself to stay at my place. house. And that's when I said clearly that I wasn't comfortable with anyone staying in my home while I wasn't there. She then accused me of not trusting her and said, "Oh, I'm your mother." But I said it wasn't about trust. I just didn't want anyone in my house. The argument eventually escalated, and finally she said to me, "Fine, take me to the airport." And I really think that she expected me to cave, but I didn't. I packed the car, I grabbed my daughter, and I drove her to the airport in silence. When we arrived, it felt like a standoff. Like she was waiting for me to say, "Never mind, don't go." But you know what? I didn't. I took her bag out, I set it on the curb, and I said to her, "If you can't find a ticket, let me know. I can help you pay for a hotel." And then I straight up left. Well, fast forward to months later, and I'm still thinking about it. I don't think I stranded my mom with no options. I offered to cover the cost of the flight and hotel, but I did leave her at the airport knowing that she had not booked a ticket. So am I the jerk here? Because I don't know what else to do. Okay, first off, no, you are not the jerk. I can't believe your mom acted like that. She literally thought she could get away with having a one-way ticket booked to your place and then try to be like, "Oh yeah, I'll just stay here while you're gone. It's no big deal." Like, no, dude, she's gonna rob you blind and then she's gonna leave. Or try to do God knows what else. That sounds like a nightmare, especially considering the way she treated you as a child. Like, this was probably her chance to get back at you in some way or like try to ruin your life. Like, I don't know. The fact that she tried to like invite herself in like that is just so creepy in my opinion. So no, you made the right decision by kicking her to the curb because the way she was acting was really weird. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for finally telling my sibling the truth that everybody else keeps whispering about? Because after finding out that literally everybody's talking crap about my younger sibling's terrible behavior, I decided to speak up, resulting in my sibling freaking out on me. And now I'm not sure if this was a mistake or not, and I just don't know what to do now. Here's how it all went down. To start things out, I'm the oldest in my family, and my younger sibling has always been kind of protected by everyone. And this is not in like an obvious way, but it's more like people constantly smoothing things over for them. If they mess up, someone explains it away. If they say something rude, it just gets brushed off as stress or like a bad day. I noticed it years ago, but I usually stayed out of it because family dynamics are messy and I didn't want to be the bad guy. Recently though, it reached a point where it started affecting me directly. My sibling has a habit of talking over people and dismissing opinions they don't like. At family gatherings, you can literally see people stop talking mid-sentence once they jump in. And then afterwards, everybody complains about it privately. I've heard the same comments from different relatives, friends, and even my partner. They'll say stuff like, "Oh, they're so exhausting, they don't listen. They always make it about themselves," but no one ever says it to their face. Last week, we had a small argument over something minor. During that conversation, my sibling accused me of being distant lately and said that I was acting judgmental. And honestly, that's when I snapped a bit. I told them that maybe people pull away because they feel talked down to, and that this isn't just my opinion. Now, I said this calmly and I wasn't yelling, but I was very direct. I also told them that people discuss this behind their back all the time, and I'm probably the first person actually being honest with them. Well, the reaction was really bad. They went quiet and then they got really upset and said I was cruel and humiliating them. Now, my parents are involved and they think I should have kept my mouth shut. According to them, telling someone that others criticize them privately is unnecessary and hurtful, even if it's true. They keep saying that I could have phrased it nicer or just let it go like everybody else does. What's really bothering me is that I don't feel like I was trying to hurt them. I genuinely thought hearing it from someone close might actually help them reflect. Instead, I'm being treated like I crossed some line. I'm starting to wonder if honestly this was the wrong move here, or if everybody else is just more comfortable pretending that nothing's wrong. So am I the jerk for saying out loud what everybody else only whispers? Because at this point, I'm not sure if I made a mistake. Okay, first off, I really don't think you're the jerk here because this needed to be said. Like, holy crap, if I knew that my sibling was being talked poorly about by pretty much everybody in the family, I would absolutely pull them aside and be like, dude, a lot of people feel this way and so do I. Because I think the logic behind what the original poster was trying to do, in my opinion, is really sound. They weren't trying to be mean, they were just trying to be honest and like help their sibling out. Like, you guys are related after all, and you're trying to be a good family member. You weren't trying to humiliate them or make them feel bad. You just wanted to like expose the fact that, yeah, a lot of people are talking crap about you. And based on the way this younger sibling's acting, like, holy crap, yeah, this is kind of deserved to an extent. But I think the real blame here absolutely goes on the parents. Someone in the comment section pretty much said like, yeah, the parents should have stepped up and had this conversation a long time ago, instead of like deflecting and being like, oh wow, I can't believe you did this. When it's like, dude, you literally allowed this to happen and now I've got to be the bad guy to kind of like explain what's going on. That is so unfair for the original poster. Like, that really sucks. So no, with all things considered, you're not the jerk. work. Your parents suck for not taking a step towards like fixing this. And overall, I think this is just really unfair for you. My idiot boyfriend broke my no-contact boundary with my terrible mother, and now he wants me to reconnect with her in a way that I am not ready for, nor do I even want to begin to do in the first place. And at this point, I feel completely betrayed because my boyfriend is not understanding where I'm coming from, and I'm kind of worried that my relationship might be over. Here's what's happening. Okay, to give a bit of context for this situation, from the ages of 11 years old to 15 years old, I hated my mother. We argued daily because I hated my terrible stepfather. He was a drunk who would get physical with my mom in front of my younger sibling and I, and during most school nights, I would stay awake from 2 o'clock in the morning until 4 o'clock in the morning, just arguing with him about the way he treats my mother. Afterwards, he would storm out of the house and my mom would say, "You need to respect him. You just love to start problems. You're so dramatic. Why don't you just mind your own business? Why are you so mad all the time?" But it's like, yeah, I was mad all the time because I didn't understand why she was dating someone so terrible. My grandparents hated him, my aunts and uncles hated him. Everybody knew he was a terrible person. Eventually, I forgave my mother. She ended up leaving him and later admitted that she stayed because we needed his income to survive. Truthfully, she did not have enough money to support my sister and I alone. It doesn't excuse my mom's behavior to me as a child, but I understood why she preferred a black guy over an eviction notice. Well, fast forward to 2024, and at the time, my mom and I are on great terms. We bake, we shop, we laugh, and we have an amazing summer. But then my mom meets this guy. He starts punching walls and smashing plates, and eventually he gets physical with her. Like clockwork, she tells me that I need to respect him. And at this moment, my entire world shatters. The years of therapy I've done, our entire relationship that I've built from scratch, just gone in a flash. I then spiral into the worst depressive episode of my life. I rapidly lose weight, my room becomes a mess, I take a semester off from school, and every day is just crying, arguing, and sleeping. That winter, my boyfriend was the only thing keeping me alive. He cleaned my room, he brought me food after 10-hour shifts, he calmed me down after panic attacks, or just hugged me. I truly don't think I would have regained my strength without his support. Well, after the worst 5 months of my life, I decided to study abroad in Greece. I needed space, and no, I didn't tell my mother. I just packed a suitcase and I left. I could barely even look at her. I did not understand why she was tolerating his behavior in her own home. She was no longer a low-income mother raising 2 younger children. She now has a great job making decent money. She owns her car and is buying a second home. At the airport, my boyfriend asked when I last spoke to her, but I just laughed it off and I kissed him goodbye. Well, during my second week in Athens, my mom starts calling everyone trying to find me. My boyfriend keeps asking why I won't call her, but I explain again that I won't speak to her until she leaves her boyfriend and gets extensive counseling, which is also something that I told my mother when I was home. But my boyfriend pushed back. He said, "She is still your mother, so you're never going to tell her that you're in Greece? You could just text her how you're doing." And so at that moment, I set a boundary with my boyfriend. I told him that if she calls or texts him, I don't want him to respond. But when I said this, he was agitated and complained about not understanding why he had to cut my mom off. For reference, him and my mother had a great relationship. I'd honestly say that she was his second mother, but reluctantly, he eventually agreed. He would still push me to contact my mother at random points during my time abroad, and I'd constantly re-explain to him that I need to stop talking to her for my own sake. Now, as a note, I learned later that she knew I was in Athens within days of me landing. An extended family member innocently brought it up after seeing my social media post, and I should also mention that my sister, my godparents, and a handful of other close family members also knew about my departure months before I left. So basically, I didn't move countries without telling someone beforehand. Well, fast forward to Mother's Day, and I'm having a terrible, tear-filled day. Not only do I miss my mom, but I also find out from my boyfriend that he's been sending my mom updates about where I've been, telling her about how I'm doing in Greece and all this other stuff. I mean, he even texted her Happy Mother's Day for crying out loud. I felt completely betrayed. It wasn't just that he crossed a boundary, it felt like he chose my mother's feelings over my own mental health. I'm bringing this up because it's December now, and I still don't think that I can trust him. Christmas was hard without my mom. She did break up with her boyfriend, but I still just don't trust her, and I don't know when or if I ever will. When my boyfriend asked if I'm going home for Christmas, it felt like I'm being asked to justify my pain all over again. Having to constantly explain and defend my decision to go no contact is exhausting, especially to my high school sweetheart, someone I've held dear to my heart for 8 years. Also, as a final note, no, my mother is not in therapy or any sort of counseling at the moment. And yes, my boyfriend did know about my mother and I's history regarding her ex. I told him all about it when we were 17 years old. My childhood makes this entire experience so much more triggering, and at this point I just don't know what to do. Okay, I don't know about you, but if I had a significant other who sat there and said, okay, yeah, I'll go no contact, no worries, and then behind my back was contacting this family member that I said, hey, don't talk to them, like literally they're ruining my life, I would probably break up with him on the spot and be like, wow, you literally betrayed me. You're telling her information about me, you're sending her happy Mother's Day messages, like, dude, what is going on right now? Are you supposed to be on my side in this situation? Like, what's going on here? So yeah, this is a huge red flag for me. There's no way I would ever come back from this, because if I had the history that you have in this scenario, I would be like very livid and probably never let this go. Did I overreact for closing the door? All because my sister-in-law was talking very loudly on the phone and it was bothering me. Because right now this is causing some weird drama in my family and I just don't know how to deal with it. Here's what's happening. Okay, for a bit of an explanation, my husband and I share a house divided into 2 apartments. We live on the first floor and the ground floor is empty, but my husband's family is currently occupying it due to the holidays. Well, yesterday my husband's family went to visit my husband's distant uncle. I was a bit tired and I currently have a sprained ankle, so I just decided to stay home. And for reference, my sister-in-law also stayed as well. I was sitting in the living room on the first floor and reading a book, but my sister-in-law was constantly talking on the phone. It was really loud, and after 2 hours, I was getting a bit tired of hearing her laugh. So I went downstairs and I closed the door. Well, 5 minutes later, I heard her open it again. We have 2 cats and both of them went up to the first floor to lay down in the living room, but my sister-in-law left the door open and continued to talk loudly. So I went down again and I closed the door once again. The cats were still with me and we have no other pets, but guess what? She opened the door again and just kept talking. Now at this point, I was a little frustrated. So I went down again, and this time before closing the door, I asked her not to open it again. And she said to me, okay. But then guess what? 10 minutes later, I heard the door open again. Well, at this point, I got angry. I found the key and I locked the door this time. Then after about 20 minutes, I heard my sister-in-law trying to open the door again, but she quickly gave up. So I didn't worry too much and just figured that that was the end of the problem. But that evening when everyone got home and we were sitting down for dinner, my sister-in-law brought it up and was so dramatic. She basically said that I was hiding from her, and apparently I was avoiding her instead of talking to her, and that she was really worried about me while I was locked up there. I then reminded her that she had spent a good 5 hours talking to somebody on the phone, and that she was not interested at all in talking to me either. I also asked her why she had to keep the door open, even after I asked her not to. She tried to use the cats as an example, but I reminded her that the cats were with me after the first time. She then started making other excuses, and it turned back into this, oh, I was worried about you. You have a problem with your leg. But I told her that my leg was hurting because of her, because I literally had to keep climbing up and down the stairs. Well, eventually the topic finally changed, but privately my husband told me that I had indeed overreacted about it, and I should have let her have the door open and go to the bedroom and just read there. So seriously, did I overreact here? Like, am I at fault in any way? Because I'm honestly not sure what to do now. Okay, in my opinion, spending 5 hours on the phone talking extremely loudly and not finding like a private corner to talk or do anything else is super annoying and not something I would ever want to put up with. Like, I 100% would close the door and be like, oh my gosh, please shut up. Stop opening the door. Leave me alone. The only reason your leg would be hurting is because this idiot's making you climb the stairs over and over again. So no, you're not overreacting. Like, your husband's completely in the wrong. And in my opinion, I think your sister-in-law's at fault here because she was being very annoying at a time where you needed to rest. Which, if she could have put her phone down for like 2 minutes, she could have seen that that's exactly what you needed. Am I crazy for not wanting my parents to have access to my bank account information? Because after my dad basically demanded it, it caused a bunch of problems in my life, and I'm at a point now where I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. For starters, I'm an 18-year-old female and I've been working for a year and a half, and I'm currently living with my parents. Yesterday, my dad came into my room and asked to see my pay statement so he could see my gross income for taxes. Well, I don't think anything of it, so I just showed it to him, and I guess he snooped around and saw what my net pay was as well. He then asked why it didn't match up, and I just told him about all the things that I bought over the year. And this is really where the problem started. Even after I told him the truth, he still wanted to see my transactions. Well, I straight up told him no because I think it's a total invasion of privacy, and it's weird for him to check my bank account. But then he got angry and said that since I live under his roof, I get no privacy. We got into an argument, and he seriously thinks that he should have total access to my bank bank because he thinks I'm doing something wrong with my money. But I think that he should trust what I'm saying. My dad then got my mom involved, and now they're both arguing with me. My dad now wants my password to my bank account, and I think that's totally unfair. I should be allowed to have some kind of independence. Keep in mind, I don't have access to my card. Every time I want to spend my money, I have to ask permission, and then my parents will allow me to use my card. So they literally know what I do with my money. I've never once complained about this ridiculous rule out of respect for them, so I don't understand why they don't have respect for me. And honestly, I feel overwhelmed. I know I have nothing to hide, so the problem will be solved if I just show him my transactions, but it's the principle of it. I want them to trust me. I want them to give me privacy and independence on what I do and don't do with my money. So seriously, am I in the wrong here? Because at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, first off, I've got to say that your parents are being very overbearing. They have no business looking at your bank account. I don't care what's going on, because what they're demanding of you is completely weird and uncalled for. At this point in your life, you're an adult, which means your decisions are your own. Your bank account is yours and they have no say over it. And I think you standing your ground is absolutely the right decision here. I know for a fact I would. This is completely unacceptable. So I think if I was in your shoes, I would not only set up a new bank account, but I would also personally transfer all my money to it so that I can have a card and spend money as I please. What's going on right now? Why do they have your card, but you're not allowed to have it as an adult? That's so overbearing and completely uncalled for. So no, you're not doing anything wrong. You have every right to privacy and independence just like anybody else. And the fact that they're trying to control this and they're acting really strange, in my opinion, is completely over the line and unacceptable. An entitled Karen in my yoga class reported me to the teacher for breathing too loudly during practice. And honestly, this blows my mind and I seriously don't know what to do now. Here's how it happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that yeah, this really did happen and I really wish I was kidding. For reference, I go to hot yoga twice a week at a local studio. It is intense, and during certain poses, especially the challenging ones, I breathe heavily. That's literally part of yoga. Breath work is fundamental to the practice. Well, there's this woman who's been coming for about a month now, and she always sets up her mat near mine. Last week during class, she kept looking at me with this annoyed expression every time I exhaled loudly. After class, she went to the instructor and complained that my breathing was distracting and disruptive. The instructor politely explained that breathing is part of yoga, and that in hot yoga especially, heavy breathing is normal and encouraged. But this woman literally said, well, it's still distracting to me, and I think she's doing it on purpose to be annoying. And it's like, bro, on purpose? I'm literally just trying to get through a difficult pose without passing out in a 105-degree room. The instructor took me aside afterwards and said I didn't do anything wrong, but then asked me if I could maybe be mindful of my breathing volume, and I was honestly kind of insulted. I paid the same amount as everyone else for this class, so I am not going to hold my breath during practice all because one person thinks it's way too loud. Okay, this is honestly so weird because yeah, the original poster is absolutely right. Breathing is literally fundamental for yoga. The fact that anybody would be like, wow, you're breathing too loudly in yoga, that is so incredibly ironic, it's not even funny. Especially doing hot yoga, that stuff is way too intense for me. I don't know about you, but that sounds miserable. Maybe other people in the comment section have a different experience with that, but just based on personal preferences, there's no way I'm ever stepping into a sauna and willingly subjecting my body to that. That sounds miserable. Sure, somebody probably likes it, but it's definitely not me. But even then, I can imagine if I did do it, yeah, I would probably be breathing pretty heavily. So for this lady to be like, oh, you're doing it to be annoying, it's what are you talking about? That is so weird. The original poster's obviously not doing that to be annoying. They're just trying to get through the program, man. What's going on here? And I swear to you, I am right there with the original poster. If after all of that, you still come to me and say, oh, just be mindful of your breathing volume, I would probably at that moment start looking for a new place to do hot yoga, because that would royally piss me off and I would probably go somewhere else. My entitled friend has been secretly stealing my perfume every single time she comes over, but now that I've confronted her and humiliated her in front of my entire friend group, my friends have now basically turned on me and saying that I'm being insensitive to my friend's struggles, as they're essentially trying to dismiss the fact that she stole from me in a way that not only makes no sense, but is also incredibly insulting. And right now, I just don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. I'm a 35-year-old female and I collect perfume. I'm also a recovering alcoholic, and so is everybody else in this story. story. My ex-best friend, who I will call Bethany, is 30 years old and also loves perfume. In fact, we met in a recovery group and bonded over trading fragrance samples. Now, I own some scents that she loves but can't afford it. Over the years, she's asked if I would mind decanting a few for her, and because scents expire and there's a limit to how much you can reasonably use at a time, in all but like one case, I happily filled up travel atomizers for free. The only exception was this one bottle that really meant a lot to me. I bought this bottle to mark my first 6 months of sobriety, and it's been a powerful association with that achievement for me. When she asked for a sample of this special bottle, I said that she could get them free from Bloomingdale's, but because of the emotional significance of my bottle, I wanted it to last as long as possible. Well, Bethany then accused me of gatekeeping and apparently being insecure about anybody else smelling like me. But I responded by snapping back by saying that if that were the case, I would not have shared every other scent that I own with her. Well, later on she apologized. I accepted it and things went back to normal. That is, until I invited her and a few other friends over for a movie night. When I walked into my bedroom, I smelled the special sobriety perfume that I had, and I immediately suspected that Bethany had used it, but of course I had no proof, so I just held my tongue. But then the next time we met up, I smelled the perfume on her. I asked her if she had bought a bottle, but she said that she got a sample like I suggested. But something about the way she said it and the look on her face made me sure that she was wearing my perfume. I then pulled away and didn't have her over again until Halloween, when I had all of our mutual friends over and I couldn't really exclude her without it being a big problem. Well, halfway through the night, she went to the bathroom and was gone for a long time. When I checked on her, the sobriety perfume was missing from my dresser, and I could smell it through the bathroom door. So I said that I knew she was stealing my perfume again, but she claimed that she was sick and sprayed her sample to hide the smell. At this point, one of our other friends came to see what was happening, and I said I didn't care if she was crapping herself. If she didn't come out immediately, I would toss her purse in the trash so she could dumpster dive until she smelled just like the garbage friend that she was. Well, that finally got her to open up, and sure enough, there was my bottle, emptier than before. When she was pressed about it, she admitted that she was filling up an atomizer and dropped it, spilling the perfume, hence the strong smell. She then cried and apologized, saying that she didn't think it was a big deal. She was having a hard time and the smell was comforting. Also, she didn't think that I would miss just a little thing. While our friends agree that what she did was wrong, they're fixated on the idea that she was struggling and that trauma and addiction can make people act up, saying that I'm a hypocrite if I don't forgive her. Personally though, I just think she wanted my perfume because it has sentimental value, and she's just using her addiction and all of her problems as like a way of manipulating our friends. So seriously, am I at fault here? Like, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I really just don't know what to do. Okay, let me put this bluntly. First off, no, you're not the jerk. But secondly, the second I find out that anyone's stealing from me in my own home, that's the moment they are no longer friends with me and I don't want anything to do with them. Seriously, that is absolutely uncalled for and there's no excuse for that. Not to mention the fact that this bottle is not just a bottle of perfume. This is something that is sentimental to you that literally marks your sobriety. So for this lady to disrupt that and be like, oh, I just want to take some of it. It's not that big of a deal. I'm just draining away the thing that's reminding you to be sober. Like, dude, what a crappy friend. And no, her addiction and problems in life is not a good enough excuse for anyone to be like, oh wow, she's struggling. Because it's like, dude, what are you talking about? This is not her struggling. This is her being a thief. This is her literally stepping over your boundaries and stealing from you while almost doing it in like this smug, satisfied way. Like, that is so crappy, it's just not even funny. So no, you're not the jerk. This is absolutely on your friend. And the fact that the rest of your friends are basically missing the point here is truly a good tell that the rest of these people probably suck too, because this quite literally is not your fault. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My girlfriend makes me feel like the cash cow of the family, as she quit her job to pursue a hobby, thus putting me in a really weird situation where I simply don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, I really need an outside perspective because my resentment is hitting a breaking point. We've been together for like 6 years and we have 2 toddlers, and we live in Germany, so it's not totally unusual to not be married. Now, my girlfriend used to have a secure, high-paying state job, but she decided to quit and open up a hobby shop focused on coaching and spirituality, and of course, I support supported her, but it's not working out well. The business is failing to gain traction. I really thought she would be happy with that since it was her dream, but instead she is stressed out and angry. So now I'm currently covering us financially, but we're at a point where our lifestyles need to downgrade significantly just to make this work. Despite her business struggling and needing more time to develop it, she refuses to send our kids to a standard kindergarten with normal hours. Instead, she insisted on a private one that closes at 2:00 p.m. And with this, it created a cycle. She says she can't work enough to fix her business because the kids are home by early afternoon. Then she blames me for not doing 50% of the childcare, even though I work a full-time job to support us. She claims she does much more than me. But here's the thing, I take over immediately after work. And at this point, I feel like I'm burning the candle at both ends. On top of this, suddenly she's pressuring me into getting married. She openly admits she is realizing she is not financially secure for the future, all because of her career pivot, and she wants the security of marriage. And if I'm being honest, it feels like a transaction, not any kind of romantic progression. She wants me to be grateful for the situation, but I feel completely trapped. And with all things considered, right now I feel used, entitled, and unappreciated. I'm hesitant to marry someone when the relationship feels so unbalanced. So I need to know, has anyone dealt with a partner who sabotages their work time, but then blames you for the lack of support? We are seeing a couples therapist, and it helps a bit, but I have the feeling that I can't really carry the unbalance of the relationship. The therapist seems to believe that I'm the typical, oh, I only work kind of guy, even though I cook 95% of the dinners, I do the groceries, and I take care of the kids as much as possible. Because right now I'm really stressed out and I just don't know what to do. Okay, in my mind, it really seems like she needs to go back to her regular job and the kids go back to a regular daycare. Like seriously, this seems so backwards. She's complaining about you not helping out with the kids, but then the kids are back at the house at like 2:00 in the afternoon. Like seriously, that's so weird in my opinion. Because it sounds like there's other programs you could sign them up for where it would make things a lot easier for the both of you. Especially when your girlfriend gets a normal job again, which from the sounds of it, it kind of seems like that needs to happen. So yeah, I would be stressed out too if I was in your shoes. And I know for a fact marriage would be the last thing on my mind right now. Like, dude, we got to get our life figured out. And part of that is her getting a job again. Like, that absolutely needs to go back to normal because this isn't working and it's driving you insane. And I think you're justified in feeling that way. My entitled father tries to claim that I was only working on Christmas because I was being greedy, as he simply wouldn't understand that I was required to work during Christmas Day simply because my job needed me there, which also gave my husband the perfect opportunity to shut him down. Here's what happened. My father, the longtime jerk and someone I almost went no contact with until I had my kid 10 years ago, was at my house for Christmas this year. He and my mom often stay with us because he has health issues that make a hotel less than ideal. Now, my dad worked a regular job in the trades for a couple of decades before starting a business, so it shouldn't be news to him that people can't just choose their hours as they please, but apparently it is. I work shift work in a 24-hour non-medical emergency service. We have a set schedule and blackout dates for time off. I work the week of Christmas all-day shift, which was also every day my parents were here. My 10-year-old wasn't super thrilled about it, but they understood. And they managed just fine with their dad there and their grandparents and their cousins, as well as their aunts and uncles. Now, one of the days my parents were there, my dad was talking to my husband and repeatedly called me greedy for working, saying that I was only working so I could get extra money. Well, my husband apparently laid into him and reminded him that jobs don't work like that. You can't just say, oh, I don't want to work those days, and magically you don't have to do it anymore. And trust me, this is by far not the worst thing my dad has ever said about me, but definitely the worst he said about me to my husband. And as a bonus, he spent a lot of the time while visiting saying how kids always have their faces in a screen, and he was saying this loudly in front of my kid and some of the other kids. Never mind that the kids were using the screen to learn a dance, or that my 10-year-old is only on screens to socialize with their friends, or play the occasional phone game. And also, never mind the fact that he's glued to his computer screen for hours every visit, and if not the computer screen, then guess what? He's watching the TV. So, in addition to missing their mom on Christmas, I had to explain a few times to my child that first of all, Grandpa is a jerk, secondly, Grandpa is objectively wrong about them always having their nose in a screen, and third, that we as their parents have no issue with the amount of screen time they log. So while that definitely dampened the mood, if I'm being completely honest, I'm not entirely surprised. Yeah, that's a really weird entitled take in my opinion. This guy literally sees you work in emergency services of some kind that's on a 24-hour schedule, and he's really trying to be like, oh, you're so greedy, you're only working because you want money. And it's like, no dude, I'm required to do it. Like, what are you talking about? I have no choice. If I don't do it, I get fired. Like, what do you want? So good for your husband for stepping up for you, man. That is honestly like the best thing to do here, because your dad was completely out of line, but from the sounds of it, this is not entirely surprising. My grandma's entitled rude friend has been staying at my house with us for over 8 days now. And right now, I really feel like I'm at my breaking point because this woman is rude and literally refuses to mind her own business, putting me in a situation where I simply don't know what to do next. Here's what's happening. To start things out, I'm a 28-year-old female and I live with my grandma. She doesn't live with me because of any health issues or anything like that, but instead we genuinely prefer living together rather than being separated. And trust me, I really enjoy living with her. She's kind to me, she never crosses boundaries, and we are really close. We also laugh and joke around a lot. She braids my hair while I gossip about boys or my day at work, and she sometimes cooks my favorite meals when I'm feeling upset. Our living situation was really peaceful and enjoyable. So this all started at my cousin's wedding, where my sister, my grandma, and myself were invited. It was a very traditional wedding and honestly kinda cute, but the after party was a hot mess. Everyone was dancing, it was loud, and I was already exhausted from the wedding. There was a weird tradition where the bride's family dances while everyone claps, and then the groom's family does the same. And since I'm family of the groom, I was also asked to dance. But I really didn't want to. I was tired and my dress was really tight, but my grandma convinced me to do so, so I did. I don't think I did that bad, but after it was over and I sat back down, an older woman I don't even know turned her head and looked me up and down and said, "You don't dance that often, do you?" And the way she said that was really rude and judgmental. Now, I just laughed it off to avoid starting drama, and then I told my sister and she told me to ignore it, and that's exactly what I did. What I didn't expect, however, was that after the wedding, my grandma invited this same woman to come home with us. At first, I assumed that it was just a ride or that she would stay the night and leave, but when we got home, I excused myself and went straight to sleep while she talked to my grandma. The next morning, she was still there. I left for work, and when I came back, she was still there again. I then finally pulled my grandma aside and I asked her what was going on. She then told me that this woman was a guest and would be staying for a couple of days. And when I was told this, I was upset because I was never asked or even informed beforehand that this would be happening. This is my house and I feel like I deserve a say in who stays here. Well, it has now been 8 long days and she is still here. She constantly inserts herself into my personal life and gives unsolicited opinions. If I complain about cramps, she tells me that maybe I should work out more. If I'm crying to my grandma about something stressful that happened at work, she jumps in and tells me to suck it up and stop crying because I'm an adult. But I never ask her for advice or opinions. Instead, she just butts in and says whatever she wants. And just to be clear, I have not been rude to her. I don't argue with her, I don't snap. I've only vented privately to my grandma, my sister, and boyfriend about how uncomfortable and frustrated that I feel. Well, instead of understanding, they tell me that I'm being a jerk and that I'm rude, which feels insane to me because all I've done is express how bothered I am by someone overstaying in my house and disrespecting me repeatedly. So am I the jerk for supposedly being rude to this house guest that I don't even want here? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, bro, I would be finding any excuse to get her out of the house. There's no way I would be okay with this. And I will say there is a possibility that there might be some kind of like cultural difference here because the original poster noted that no, they're not from the United States. So I totally understand there might be something I'm missing here from the culture they live in, but from my perspective as an American, this is crazy. If I own the house that I'm living in and my grandma's staying there with me, then in my opinion, if she wants to bring someone in for like a temporary stay, then she needs to run that by me first before it happens. I don't want to come home and be like, oh, the rude woman who insulted my dancing is here and she hasn't left for over a week. This is great. I'm so excited. Like, no, dude, I'd be so pissed off. I would want her gone immediately. But instead, I've got to deal with her for 8 days. Like, dude, that sounds miserable. And it's also weird that these people are like, oh, wow, you're so rude for not wanting her here. I can't believe you're being so mean to her. But it's like, bro, I don't even talk to this lady. Like, literally, I go home, I go to sleep, and I go right back to work, and I talk to my grandma somewhere between all of these things happening. And yet this lady, who's clearly overstaying her welcome, just butts into my conversations and says, oh, suck it up, you're an adult. Like, bro, I would go crazy dealing with this. I would hate this so much because this not only violates my own privacy, but it's also obnoxious. So no, you're not the jerk for being annoyed by this, and in my opinion, I would start having the conversation of like, okay, it's time for her to go. She doesn't have to go home, but she definitely cannot stay in my house any longer. Because in my opinion, this is slowly but surely becoming a permanent engagement. And I'm pretty sure from the sounds of it, that is not something the original poster wants in the slightest. My father and my sister officially disowned me right before Christmas, putting me in a scenario that is heartbreaking and incredibly infuriating, because right now I don't know what to do and I don't know how to address this. Here's what happened. Okay, to get right to the point, this Christmas my dad and my sister officially disowned me. On a separate subreddit, I believe I posted about the fact that I stopped talking to them previously about 2 years ago. Our relationship was finally starting to get better, up until the point my sister talked to him about the house that my mom and I were going to buy from her. We weren't under the impression that it was going to be an issue, so it was surprising to me when my sister said, "Just between you and me, Dad doesn't want Mom's name on it." Which, if it was just because I was his daughter, then fine, whatever. But my dad, the forgiving Christian supposedly, was telling my sister it had to do with legal and protective reasons. He wants it to stay within the family, and he didn't want my mom to kick me out if she got dementia for some stupid reason, and generally just comments about her overall personality. Now, I will say my mother hasn't made good choices, and I can understand why my dad doesn't like her, but turning his opinion into suspicion onto my mother was entirely a different matter. My sister and I had an argument twice over it, and when my mother and I decided not to go through with it, because there seems to be more issues than necessary, my sister took it personally and thought it was because I thought that I was better than her, but it wasn't. I just didn't think that this situation was going to be in any way fair to my mom, considering she would have been the one paying for the majority of it if she received her settlement. It also left a bad taste in my mouth, because it seemed like my sister was starting to come around to my mother, who was genuinely a better person now, and after this talk, she just went right backwards to where she was. But after dealing with some built-up anger and some irritation I was having with medication issues, it eventually led to its boil. I had it out with my dad. I felt like he caused all the issues, even after my parents have been divorced for like over 10 years now, and I seriously just let everything out. And I will say that truly I was emotionally unregulated at the time, and I do understand why that's hard to deal with. But that, however, wasn't why I was disowned. During the fight, I brought up my dad's pattern of deflecting from responsibility, hiding behind religion, and just hiding things in general. And I used the example of his new wife, saying, okay, well, have you apologized for these certain issues? Because this is how relationships get better. And sure, we all knew that she read messages, but I wasn't thinking of that at the moment, especially since I gave out like specific examples. Well, because of the things I said, a couple minutes later, he said that I was apparently interfering and messing up his marriage, and that he hopes that I'm happy, and tells me that I need to block him. He then tells my sister that I'm getting in the middle of his marriage, and she's acting like I'm messaging her even though I never did. Things escalated eventually to the point where my sister had it out with me more, saying that I became crazy living with my mother, that I'm gonna pass away alone after my mother passes away, while also claiming that whatever happens with dad is my fault, and said that she would call and report government housing on us, even though that wouldn't make any sense because we literally have nothing to hide. So with all that in mind, and especially with all of this happening right before my Christmas, I'm now incredibly stressed out and a little bit heartbroken, because right now I just don't know what to do. Oh man, this is one of those situations where I think some healthy distance would be really good. There's clearly a lot of problems between you and your family, I've got to be honest. Like, there were just more and more details the further you went into explaining all the crap these people have done. From the accusatory statements that just got thrown around left and right, all the way to the divorce and the way it's clearly affected you and your sister. This is truly a mess, and honestly, I just don't think it's healthy for anybody. But if I'm being completely honest, it sounds like your sister and your dad are definitely the ones at fault in this scenario. Because honestly, they sound incredibly toxic here. They're being mean to you, they're saying really nasty things, especially your dad, who's like dragging out this divorce for like, what, 10 years now? Like, dude, let it go. You guys are not together anymore. There's no reason to hold this kind of animosity, especially when it comes to buying a house that, guess what, you've got nothing to do with. So yeah, I'm sorry that they disowned you, but from the sounds of it, these don't sound like good people in my opinion. And I think some time away from them will probably be for the best. My creepy neighbor keeps asking me out to go to the theater with him, and despite the fact that I've said no to him multiple times, this guy literally will not take no for an answer, putting me and my family in the weirdest situation I've ever been in my entire life. Here's what's happening. Around a year ago, my neighbor, who is 59 years old, approached me asking if I'd like to go to the cinema with him. I politely said no, and I thought that was the end of it. But no, I was completely wrong, because the next day, he came to the door and asked me again the same thing, to which I said no no once again. Then he posted a letter through my letterbox asking me the same question, and I just ignored it. But at this point, he came to the door again to make sure I knew he would pay, and I said, no, I'm okay, I don't want to go. Now, by this point, I was freaked out. For some context, I'm 22 years old and I have anxiety. And this neighbor is someone I've known since I was 12 years old, but only in like brief conversations. So I decided to tell my mom. When she found out, she said to me to not answer the door and that she will deal with him herself. He knocked on the door again at 7 o'clock in the morning the next morning, and my mom told him that he was a creep and to back off. Ever since then, he hasn't really spoken to me except for like a wave in passing. Well, that is until yesterday when he approached me asking again. He said he knows my mom thinks he's creepy, but he's just trying to be nice. And I've got to be honest, I was so taken off guard that I just said to him I would let him know. For context, I have seen him this past year, but either he was with his son or I was with my mom. So this is literally my first time ever seeing him on my own. I wanted to make this post because I was helping get shopping out of the car, and all I could hear was banging on his window, and I didn't look up, but when my mom got out of the car, it finally stopped. I feel so anxious all over again, and I don't know what I can say that'll make him stop, because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, there are so many red flags in this situation, it's not even funny. Because there is no reason a 59-year-old man should be asking out a 22-year-old woman. Not only that, but this guy is not taking no for an answer. And you should only have to say no once. Like, this is really creepy behavior and completely unacceptable. I know for a fact if I was in your situation though, if this guy really kept trying to come to my house and ask me out to the cinema, I would immediately go to the police with all the information that I could possibly provide, including any camera footage that I guess the original poster said they have around their house, but also that letter he put through your letterbox, which is really just so uncalled for. That's just weird. So yeah, that's what I would do if I was in your situation, because this is out of control and this guy needs to stop. My entitled coworker expected me to stay late to do her job, as she was behind on work that she hadn't even started, assuming that I could just cancel my plans after work just to do her job, which inevitably gave me the perfect chance to shut her down and show her that she is not the boss of me and she does not decide when I have to stay late. Here's what happened. For a bit of context to set the scene, this was a regular work day. There were no deadlines that day, no last-minute requests from management. We were wrapping up and people were already shutting down their computers. About 10 minutes before the end of the day, a coworker came over to my desk and asked what time I was heading out, and I told her I was leaving on time. She then nodded and said to me, "Okay, because I'm going to need help finishing something up." I then asked what it was, and she explained it was a task that she'd been assigned earlier that week and just hadn't gotten to it yet. And she said this casually, like it was already understood that I would stay, but I told her I couldn't because I had plans after work. She then paused and asked what the plans were, but I said they were personal. She then looked a little surprised and said, "But this is work." But I already told her I'd finished everything on my plate and that it wasn't something I'd been asked to help with earlier. She then stood there for a moment and said, "It won't take that long." But still, I said I couldn't stay. She said to me, "I just thought you'd be more of a team player." And if I'm being completely honest, there wasn't anything I could really say to that without starting an argument. So I just repeated that I wasn't able to help, and I went back to shutting down my computer. As I was leaving, I could see her still working at her desk, and no one said anything to me on the way out. The next week, she mentioned it again in passing, saying that she'd been overwhelmed that night, and it would have been easier if I had stuck around. But you know what? Nothing happened because the work got done eventually. No one was in trouble, and if I'm being honest, it just stuck with me how easily she assumed my time belonged to her once the workday ended, which is really toxic, and I'm just glad I didn't help her out. Okay, I can't stand coworkers like this who don't get their crap done in time, but then try to shovel it off onto your desk and be like, "Oh, you can help out, right? It'd be great if you could be a team player. I mean, it's not going to take that long." It's like, yeah, it's not going to take long for you because I'm not doing it. Unless a supervisor steps in and says, "You have to do this." Sorry, you're not the boss of me and I'm not going to listen to you. And you know for a fact that regardless of what you said your plans were, she would have made some kind of excuse and been like, "Oh, you can cancel." It literally could have been anything, and she still would have been like, "Oh no, you need to leave those plans behind and do my work for me." So good for you for shutting her down and saying, "No, I'm not going to do your work for you. This is some weird behavior." Because at the end of the day, the work got done. And just because she's unorganized doesn't mean that you have to cancel your plans just to help her out. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to share my personal notes at work after everyone literally ignored me before? Because right now, everyone's kind of pissed off that I shut them down, and I'm really not sure if I made a mistake. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I work in a mid-size office, and I'm known for being pretty organized. And this is not in a way where I like brag about it or anything anything like that. I just like writing stuff down and keeping track of things because my memory is trash. Over time, I built my own system for notes for meetings, reoccurring issues, contacts, weird procedures nobody documents, all that boring stuff. I did this on my own time mostly, and no one asked me to do it, and no one really cared either. Well, a few months ago, I actually tried to share some of it. We had a messy project, and I offered to post my notes in the shared drive so that we could all be on the same page in some kind of way. And while people said yes, nobody even opened it. Nobody commented, and later I even got blamed for not reminding someone about a deadline that was literally in the notes. And so after that, I stopped offering and I kept doing my own thing quietly. Fast forward to last week, and our team lead is out sick. Everything's on fire, and suddenly everyone's asking me for my notes, like multiple messages a day. They'll say, "Can you send that document over? Do you still have the checklist? What was the last contact again? I can't remember." But I reply politely that my notes are personal and not an official resource, and that I don't feel comfortable sharing them anymore. I then suggested we wait for the lead or just check the official documents. And now after I did that, people are acting cold. One coworker said I'm being petty and holding information hostage, and another person joked that I think I'm special. But I don't feel special. I just feel burned from the last time, and I don't want responsibility for other people's mistakes. So am I the jerk for saying no, even though it would have helped the team right now? Because at this point, I'm honestly frustrated and I don't know what to do. No, there's no way I would ever give those people my notes ever again. They clearly didn't appreciate it the first time, so they're not going to get a bailout the second time. And also, why are they not taking notes during meetings? Why are they not writing things down and not doing their job? If anything, this could be solid proof that yeah, you kind of deserve a raise if anything. No one else is keeping track of stuff and they're now relying on you all because they can't do their job right? I do not think so. Your lack of planning is not my emergency, get lost. So no, you're not the jerk here. This is absolutely not your problem. Because if these people can't keep their lives straightened out, then honestly, that is something they need to figure out and not something you need to save. Am I the jerk for telling my wife's family that they cannot cook their turkey in our oven at Christmas? Because even though we've explained that we're vegetarians and we don't want our oven smelling like meat, my wife's family is basically saying that we're putting our beliefs over the Christmas spirit. And at this point, I just don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Each Christmas, my wife and I host her family. This has been going on for a while now as we have young kids, and it's just better for the kids to be at home all day on Christmas Day to play with their new things. My wife and I are also both vegetarians. We're not militant, and we totally believe that everyone has a right to choose what they want to eat, but nevertheless, we both find the meat industry horrific and hate the thought of what meat is. Most of my wife's family are also vegetarian, which does help, but her dad and brother are not. Normally, they cook the turkey at home and then heat it up in our microwave, as we never really used it, so we aren't really bothered about meat being cooked in it. However, our microwave is broken this year. We've not replaced it or looked at getting it fixed, as we have no real reason to use it. Well, my father-in-law is now saying that we should either cook the turkey in our oven or at least let them heat it up in the oven. But when he asked this, I said no. We really just don't want our oven smelling of meat, and the same for the air fryer. We then said that they're welcome to bring their own air fryer and use that, but he's being a bit difficult and saying we're putting our silly beliefs ahead of the Christmas spirit. I've tried pointing out that neither of us object to them eating meat in our house. That's literally their choice. We just really don't want it cooked in our oven. It's got to the point now where I'm seriously thinking of just buying a new microwave tomorrow just to put an end to all of this. So seriously, am I the jerk for not wanting the meat to be cooked in our oven? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, first off, I don't think you're the jerk because you're going about this the right way. You're telling them, hey, cook it ahead of time and then heat it up somewhere, or bring your air fryer with you and take care of it that way. But we don't want our stuff to smell like meat because we're vegetarians, and that's probably going to make us sick. And by the way, that really is true. I do know some vegetarians who will get sick at the smell of meat or meat being cooked, and they also can't eat meat at all because it really will make them sick, like food poisoning sick. So in my opinion, I don't think what the original poster is asking is really that big of a deal. So in my opinion, I don't think the original poster's the jerk, and I think they're being very reasonable and they're giving options that can be followed. My wife spent 7 hours at a lake in the middle of the night supporting a friend who is known to be a serial cheater. And right now I'm getting paranoid because this really doesn't look great. And I'm trying to figure out if I'm in the wrong for feeling this way or if there is a possibility that something sketchy is going on. Here's what's happening. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out if I'm overreacting or if my logic is somewhat sound. Yesterday was a huge day for me. I had been up since dawn cooking for the holiday and solo parenting our 3-year-old child. By 7 o'clock p.m., I was exhausted. Well, my wife told me that a male friend of hers who is currently the center of a local cheating scandal was in crisis and needed to talk. She then left at about 7 o'clock to meet with him, and obviously I stayed home with the kid. Using location sharing, I noticed they spent the next 6 hours at a local lake. Then fast forward to 1 o'clock in the morning, I messaged her just to make sure that she was alive. She replied back instantly saying that she was still alive, but instead of coming back home, her location moved to further out on the water, and she stayed there for another 40 minutes. Eventually, she finally got home at about 2:15 in the morning. Well, this morning, she has been completely silent about it. No apology for being late, no explanation of the crisis, and she's been avoiding me while focusing entirely on our kid. The main issue is that I had to use her car today to take our kid to the shops, and when I opened the door, the car reeked of unfamiliar sweat. It was a strong, lingering scent that has not been there ever since she left. Now, here's the facts. Her friend is a known serial cheater. She spent 7 hours with him alone until like 2 o'clock in the morning, all while I was home exhausted after doing all the labor and childcare, and she's not said a single word about the night ever since she walked in. I am a pretty logical person, and I try to lead with trust, but the combination of the location, the duration, and the silence today, plus the smell in the car, makes me feel like my intelligence is being insulted, and I'm being way too trusting. So seriously, am I being paranoid? Like, am I the jerk for being suspicious here? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, I don't know about you, but it definitely sounds like she's cheating on you. I have no evidence about this, and I have no way of proving it, but based on what you're describing, this is incredibly sketchy. Like, dude, she's got a kid at home and a husband, and instead of being there with you two, for the holidays, she runs off for like 7 hours to spend time with this guy who's also known as a serial cheater. Like, are you kidding me right now? What in the world is going on? That is so stupid. Like, considering the context and everything going on in this situation, I would be very suspicious as well and be like, oh yeah, she was definitely doing something she shouldn't. Because dude, she was there for 7 hours. I can understand like an hour and a half or like 2 hours, but 7 hours at that point is a choice. And it kind of leads me to believe that yeah, there is something else going on here. So no, you're not paranoid. I think what you think is going on might actually be what's going on. And if that is the case, that really is unfortunate, and you definitely do not deserve that. My entitled neighbor thinks that she owns a public path in front of her house, as she actively made our life incredibly difficult anytime we try to park in front of her house, putting us in a situation that was honestly incredibly annoying. Here's what happened. Okay, so this started about 6 years ago when we moved into a house with a fairly long driveway. The neighbors next to us were decent enough, but the house on the opposite side of us ended up being an absolute nightmare. We have 2 cars, one being a sedan and the other being a small hatchback, and the long driveway means that we can fit both cars on it, but there is a fence along half of it, meaning if we need to use the car behind, we have to move the other. This also means when we have to take the bins out, we have to move both cars. So once a week, we would park the smaller car on the pavement opposite our house in front of this entitled neighbor's place. And also, we would park on the pavement outside of our house, but due to the position of a lamppost, it makes it awkward to get in and out of the driveway with the other car. And there's a large patch of grass which we are trying to maintain. Also, keep in mind, we would only park there overnight maybe once or twice a week. Eventually, I got the use of a work car, so that would be parked on the opposite side every other week. When we first moved in, she kept yelling across the street about how we were parking on her land and that we needed to stop. So we went ahead and checked, and guess what? It's a public pavement, so anyone is allowed to park there if they want to. She then called the police saying that we were illegally parking, but when the police turned up, they literally just went away once they realized we weren't doing anything wrong. She had multiple cameras set up looking at her house, and then called the police again when we set up one looking at our driveway after someone literally keyed our sedan. We assumed it was her, but we had no proof. Then she set up like 2 loads of cement blocks and some wooden pallets on the pavement, blocking anyone from parking there, as she stated that she was storing them there while doing work on her backyard. But apparently the council told her to remove them by the end of the week. But she didn't remove them until the police told her that she had to move them a month later. She then started reversing into her driveway by deliberately going up onto the grass verge, destroying it, while shining high beams into our living room. Eventually, she stopped and just kind of gave up after about 2 or 3 years of this, but her driveway was wide enough for 2 cars, and she only ever parked on the pathway to stop us from parking there. I also work nights, so I would get back in the morning just to see her SUV parked on the pavement with her driveway empty, and so I would just park behind her. Thankfully, we've since moved out of that house after some issues with the landlord, and honestly, I'm grateful because dealing with that neighbor was truly a nightmare. Okay, I will never understand why people have any kind of issue with someone parking on the street in front front of your house. If they're not on your property and they're not blocking your driveway, then congratulations, there's nothing you can do about it and you need to get a life. It does not make any sense to me why anyone gets upset about this. I'm not even kidding. Because you're not doing anything wrong if you do park on the street. It's a public area. You literally can park there if you want to. And sometimes you kind of need to do that. So yeah, your neighbor sucked, and I'm so glad that you moved away from them, because I've dealt with neighbors like this before, and it really is an everyday nightmare. And I don't even think I would wish that on my worst enemies. Am I the jerk for leaving Christmas dinner? All because my uncle wouldn't stop making jokes and putting me down about being unemployed. Because right now, my family's kind of acting like I'm the issue here, despite the fact that this guy was really treating me terribly. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, to start things out, I'm a male in my 30s, and I've been out of work for a bit, but I'm actively looking. I'm doing interviews, I'm doing all the things that I need to do. And while this isn't really a secret, I really don't want it to be the main topic at any kind of family gathering. Well, we had a family Christmas dinner this past weekend. I went and brought a bottle and dessert and was very polite and helped clear the plates and just tried to get through it. Well, my uncle started with the usual, "Oh, so when are you getting a job?" type of comments. I did the normal laugh it off thing and said, "Oh, I'm on it," but he kept going all night. He would say stuff like, "Must be nice having a permanent holiday. Maybe Santa can bring you a resume. You know, you should try working instead of sitting on the computer." And the worst part about it is that while he was saying this, people laughed and literally nobody told him to stop. After the fourth or fifth comment, I finally said calmly, "Hey, can you drop it? I'm here for dinner, not to be roasted." But he replied by saying something like, "Oh, come on, it's just banter. Don't be so sensitive." Well, at that point, I just got up and I said, "Right, I'm heading off. Merry Christmas, everyone." And then I just straight up left. But now my mom is saying I embarrassed her and I should have just ignored him because that's just how he is. And she says that it made things awkward for everybody. But I really did not enjoy that. So am I the jerk for leaving instead of sitting there and taking it? Because right now I don't know if I'm in the wrong. Okay, I will say this 100 times. I don't care if it's family or anybody. Anyone who talks to you like that and then refuses to stop when you tell them to drop it, in my opinion, no longer is family and instead is someone who needs to be shut down. Like, these are the type of people that if you don't put your foot down, they will walk all over you and make you feel like garbage forever. Which, by the way, is completely unfair. Like, this stopped being a joke the second he tried to be like, "Oh yeah, Santa should bring you a resume. You're just on a permanent holiday." Like, that's so uncalled for, it's really just demoralizing. Because I guarantee you, this guy's probably so sensitive that if the shoe was on the other foot and you said these jokes to him, he would freak out and lose his mind. And also, your mom trying to be like, "Oh, that's just the way he is." What she's really saying is, "Oh, I'm too afraid to say anything, and the fact that you did is putting us all in a situation we don't want to be in," which really means they would rather you fall on the sword than have to do anything to correct this guy, which is so inappropriate and just so toxic. So no, you're not the jerk for leaving. If I was in your shoes, I would have done the same thing, because that kind of behavior and those kind of comments are inappropriate and you don't deserve that. Am I the jerk for returning my mom's gift that she gave me after I found an air tag in it that she had put there so that she could track my location? Because right now I'm really pissed off and I don't know what else to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old female and I live about 40 minutes away from my mom, and we've had a reoccurring issue where she worries in a way that turns into control. For example, she will send me a text message, and if I don't respond within an hour, she will literally call my friends if I'm quiet. It's stuff like that. It's really obnoxious. I've tried talking to her calmly and it always becomes, "I'm just being a good mother." Well, last month she showed up at my apartment building because she had a bad feeling and wanted to make sure that I was alive. But I wasn't in danger. I was literally just taking a nap after a night shift. We had a big argument and I just told her very clearly that you cannot show up unannounced ever again. Well, this week she invited me for dinner and handed me a new keychain that had a little tile style finder on it. She then said it was so I would never lose my keys ever again and acted super proud of herself. And I actually thought it was kind of sweet until I got home and the keychain kept pinging my phone in weird ways. I then opened the battery compartment and inside of it, taped under the plastic, was an AirTag, not the brand name finder she told me it was. And when I checked it, it was registered to her Apple ID. I then texted her asking her why. "Why did you do this?" And she responded with a bunch of crying emojis and said that I'm paranoid. She said it's for emergencies and that any daughter would be grateful for this. I then drove over the next day, put the keychain on her kitchen counter and said I'm returning it and that I need some space for a bit. She then started yelling that I'm punishing her and that I'm being cruel for making her feel unsafe. And now, as a result of this, my aunt is texting me that I'm overreacting and that apparently moms just do this. So seriously, am I overreacting? Like, am I the jerk at all? Because this entire situation has really creeped me out. Okay, first off, no, you're not the jerk. This is weird. You're 28 years old. You live on your own. Your mom has no business trying to track your location, which is exactly what she was doing, by the way. She's trying to keep tabs on everywhere you're going and like all the things you're doing, which is truly just so weird, man. Like that's creepy. It's also alarming that she's trying to justify this by being like, oh, all moms do this. I just want to make sure I know where you're at. But it's like, dude, your daughter is a fully grown woman. She's 28 years old, dude. She doesn't need you tracking her location. Like that's weird. So no, you're not the jerk. I would also send this back to my mom, but I would probably shatter it in the process because she has no business tracking your location. And the fact that she tried that in the first place is really weird. Am I overreacting for being upset that my boyfriend ruined my pancakes just to teach me a lesson on Christmas morning? Because the way he acted seems so out of character that it honestly is really concerning. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I'm really trying to figure out if I'm genuinely overreacting or if this means something more. On Christmas morning, my boyfriend and I were making pancakes together. This was something I was really looking forward to, by the way. It felt like a small, cozy holiday moment. We were using 2 separate pans and we each had our own pancakes going on. Now, for a bit of background about me, I have diagnosed OCD, and while I know that can sometimes make me difficult to cook with, in this case, I only mentioned that pancake batter should be mixed gently because overmixing develops gluten and it makes the pancakes dense. I wasn't criticizing him, I just explained why we need to mix it lightly. Well, he took over the bowl anyways and started aggressively mixing it, which really surprised me. Then he wouldn't let me pour the batter. When I finally did get to pour my own pancakes, he took his ladle and smushed and smeared the 3 pancakes I had cooking. And when I asked him why he did that, he said he was teaching me a lesson because apparently I'm difficult to cook with. And I gotta be honest, that really upset me. It felt humiliating and unnecessary, especially because we were literally on separate pans, it was Christmas morning, and this was something I was genuinely excited about. Also, his family in the kitchen said that I was overreacting and that apparently it's just pancakes and everyone would still eat them. So to them, it wasn't a big deal. And if I'm being completely transparent, this part also kind of stung because it felt like when a kid breaks another kid's toy, and instead of correcting the kid who did it, everyone tells the one who's upset to just suck it up. And sure, I do sometimes like things done a certain way, but I've always taken his input as well. If we want tomatoes, I add them in. If he prefers something different, I adjust. I might take some more time sauteing vegetables or be really particular about technique, but I've never intentionally ruined his food or tried to punish him for how he cooks. So I guess I'm really questioning, like, am I overreacting for crying about this on Christmas morning, or is it reasonable to be hurt? And also, by the way, after all of this, he refused to let me make my eggs my own way and said that no, I'm gonna eat them his way. And I really think this is still part of the lesson he's trying to teach me. What should I do? Okay, I gotta be completely honest with you. This guy does not care about you because his reaction in this situation is so weird. Think about it for a second. He's trying to teach you a lesson? Like, what lesson are we talking about? Because the only thing I'm learning from the outside looking in is that your boyfriend is very unkind and very mean to you. And he's only doing this to try and make you feel bad about wanting it done a certain way, which, if I'm being completely honest, there were easy compromises that could have been made. He could have said something like, oh, let me get your own bowl and then you can mix it how you want. That way you can have the pancakes exactly how you feel they should be made. Or something like that. Like, it would have been easy to separate it and be like, oh, okay, you could do it your way and I'm gonna do it my way. But instead, he acted like a really immature jerk. He went out of his way to try and like make you look bad, especially in front of his family, who are also pieces of garbage. Like, what are they talking about? It's just pancakes, we're gonna eat it anyways. Which makes me think like, yeah, the original poster is right. This is the other kid breaking the toy and being like, oh, you need to suck it up. You're the problem by having a reaction to it. So no, you're not the jerk here. You're not overreacting, because from the sounds of it, your boyfriend literally doesn't like you. And I'm really sorry if that's like the first time you're realizing it, because this felt very intentional on a day where this really should not have happened. My psycho step-uncle tries to sell the house that I inherited, as he literally tried to do this without my permission, because after I was listed as the only person to inherit the house after my grandfather passed away, my step-uncle lost his mind and decided to take things to a new level that I didn't think was possible. And I'm honestly still blown away because this truly did cross so many lines for me. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I need to give some background information. My real grandfather died when my dad was 15 years old, and my grandma married again, and that man was my grandpa, and I loved him. For the first 10 years of my life, I didn't even know we weren't related. He was amazing and he literally spoiled me, but he never adopted my dad. And for reference, it wasn't a normal thing to do back then, and later my dad was already an adult, so they didn't even really think about it. Unfortunately, we lost him due to cancer when I was 11 years old. He knew he was gonna die, so he told me about his history, and it's here that he warned me about my step-uncles. He was married before and had 2 sons, but his wife was cheating on him and he divorced her. Those 2 boys might not even be his, but at the time, he was listed listed in birth certificate as the father, and nobody cared about what if. Plus, DNA testing wasn't a thing back then. Well, both of those boys cut all contact with him, and my grandfather tried for years to have contact with them, but they refused, even as adults, and said some pretty nasty things. Now, one of his sons, who I will call the other uncle, didn't talk to him for over 25 years, and the other one, who I will call evil uncle, did contact him 15 years ago just to get my grandma to pay for his debts and get free housing for him and his wife, just to then try to steal grandpa's house when they moved in with him. So yeah, no more contact for him either. Grandpa also never met his own grandchildren, and that was the main reason why he spoiled me so much. I was his second chance to be a grandfather. When my grandpa entered the final stage of cancer and was in the hospital, evil uncle and other uncle visited him for the first time since last contact, which as a reminder was 25 and 15 years ago, and they came to visit him with paperwork that said my grandpa was gifting his house to them, and actually tried to force my heavily sedated grandfather to sign it. Thankfully, the nurse came in and kicked them out, and after that, my grandma took him home and took care of him herself just to protect him, with him eventually dying peacefully in his own bed. Fast forward, and both uncles came to the will reading, where everyone, even my parents, were shocked that I was named as the only inheritor. Well, that enraged my step-uncles, especially the evil uncle, and they immediately brought it to court. Now, I was represented by my dad because I was only 11 years old at the time, so I don't know all the details, but we won it 2 years later. The other uncle acknowledged it and disappeared again, but evil uncle appealed the judgment, and it went back to court for 3 more years. But guess what? We won again. But it really took an emotional and financial toll on my family, and at the end of it, we had to sell the house. And so, with that long bit of background information out of the way, here's where things get really interesting. A few days after we won, some realtor used a key and entered the house where my grandma still lived, and told her that her son is selling, saying that in the next 10 minutes there will be a tour. Needless to say, my grandma was shocked, but she knew we wanted to sell, so she didn't make a big deal out of it. But when they left, she called my dad and told him he could have at least warned her, and that's how we found out about the listing on the internet, which was put on there almost a month ago when we were still fighting at court. There were even photos of the interior. Dad tried to call the realtor, but he was blocked, so he told grandma to call him if they ever came back, which happened 2 days later. She said the same realtor is there, telling her there will be 2 tours this time. Well, Dad went there immediately and confronted the realtor, and that is how we found out the whole story. Apparently, someone had called them about selling the house. The fake seller told the realtor that he was abroad and that he was at court because of the house and that he had just won. He had also sent them fake paperwork, and of course, they didn't verify it. Instead, they just saw all the money they could make. He mailed them the keys, which, by the way, these are the same keys the evil uncle didn't return when he moved out, and told them to enter and make photos, and even made some tours before they were caught. And these tours were on the dates that the court hearings were, so my grandma wasn't even home. Plus, my dad was blocked because the fake seller told them that it was a number of a thief who was trying to steal his house. They never saw the fake seller, and we couldn't prove it was evil uncle, even though we knew it was him. I mean, the keys the realtor were given were the same ones that had a keychain my grandma put on them when we gave them to my evil uncle in the first place. We also couldn't prove that the realtor knew that there was some kind of foul play going on. And of course, the police didn't help at all and just gave the realtor a warning and told him to delete the listing. This guy even had the audacity to try and convince my dad to continue selling with them, but my dad obviously refused. Now, you might be thinking, well, the realtor isn't the evil one here. They might not truly know what's going on. And sure, that's true, even though they were guilty of negligence when they didn't verify the ownership, which is the easiest thing to do, like anyone can do it. What the realtor is guilty of, however, is how he tried to scam my dad out of money after this. This guy literally sent an invoice for breaking the sales agency's agreement. You know, the contract we never signed because we weren't the ones who put on the listing. Apparently, they wanted 10% from the listing price of the house, or keeping the only realtors who are listing our house, which will guarantee them 10% as commission. Like, that realtor truly believed my dad is some kind of countryside simpleton that he can scam. Unfortunately for him, so close after the court, we were still in contract with a very expensive and very good lawyer who quickly reminded him how easily we could sue if we want to. So the invoice was taken back and we never were contacted by them ever again. But the audacity is honestly crazy. Well, fast forward and we used that money that was left from selling the house, and we bought an apartment that was only a 30-minute walk away from us, where my grandma spent the rest of her years, which all in all is probably the only silver lining that truly comes out of this. Holy crap, I'm surprised you guys didn't like sue the evil uncle for doing this, but I guess at the end of the day, it's kind of hard to like prove that yeah, he's the one that did this, because dude, this is some crazy stuff. Like this guy really is an evil uncle because he planned all of this when you would be at court, while also gambling the chance of like the grandma also not being home. Like can you imagine not being home and someone's in your house looking around as some kind of tour for the house you didn't know you were selling yet? Like dude, this is some crazy behavior. So good for you for getting this all sorted out and getting that realtor off your back. Like that guy has quite the nerve to ask for money, especially after trying to sell your house without your permission. That's some crazy behavior, and honestly, I'm so glad you got it resolved. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My boyfriend takes all of his money and is actively against us even being together. And even though we want to move in together, this entire situation is very sketchy, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, for a bit of context, my boyfriend and I got together a few years ago, and we have been through college and everything. He went to college but got kicked out due to his grades, and is not sure if going back is the path he wants to take. Meanwhile, I started college a year after to study nutrition. Fast forward to now, and he's 22 years old and works a 9-to-5 job, and I'm soon to be 21 with a part-time job and still in college, and soon to graduate in about a year and a half. The problem is that we both want to move in together soon, within the next year or so, into a small starter apartment, but his mom takes a lot of my boyfriend's money. She really thinks that it's my fault he's not in college currently, and isn't on the same path that she wants for him. She doesn't want me over at their place, she doesn't like us being on the phone for too long, doesn't like that he spends a certain amount of money on me, etc. He pays half the rent of their current place, plus the Wi-Fi, the phone, and insurance. And on top of that, she will ask him for money for other things that she can't personally pay for. He also pays for all his food and transportation, which truly just doesn't leave him with a lot of money left. He's tried to save his money up before, but every single time, his mom tells him to stop hoarding money and demands to see his pay stubs. Now, we do have a joint bank account, but can't seem to build money in it, and I honestly feel hopeless sometimes. Also, the relationship between him and his mom has become worse recently, and he really wants to leave but feels like he can't. He has mentioned wanting to move out with me to her before, but then she would just start explaining that he should get his own place first, which would be nearly impossible given the current economy and his situation. We were looking to move into a small studio apartment at around $1,000 a month, which is possible once I'm able to work more, but there's honestly a lot going on, and I'm hoping we can start saving more because at this point I just don't know what else to do. Okay, first and foremost, there are so many red flags here, it's not even funny, and some people in the comment section have also kind of pointed this out. For starters, what are you doing having a joint bank account with someone you're not married to? That guy could clean the account out at any moment and there would be nothing you could do about it. Also, his mom's not ripping the money out of his hands. Like this guy is willingly giving it to her. And that, in my opinion, is a big red flag. It sounds like he's a big pushover, and that's not going to be good for you in the slightest. So this entire situation is just incredibly sketchy in my opinion. It doesn't give me much confidence that this is going to end in your favor, and if anything, it kind of makes me believe that yeah, he's going to use you and dry you up, and then pretty soon you're going to have nothing in your name. So if I was in your shoes, I don't think I would move in with this guy. I would reassess where my money's going, and I would make sure I've got myself secure first and foremost, because this entire situation is one giant red flag, and I would simply not ignore that. Am I the jerk for stopping mid-conversation anytime this one particular coworker interrupts me in the middle of my sentence? Because after dealing with this for so long, I finally have had enough, and I simply am trying to put my foot down more instead of just letting it happen. And now I'm not sure if I'm crossing a line, and I really just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I have a coworker who interrupts constantly, and this is not just sometimes like everyone does, but every single conversation. You start a sentence and she's already talking over you. At first, I thought maybe she was just excited or nervous, so I just ignored it. But after months, it started driving me a little insane. Last week during a meeting, I was explaining an idea, and she cut in halfway through my first sentence. Instead of pushing through like I normally do, I just stopped talking entirely. I went completely quiet and I looked at her. She finished what she was saying and then just kind of trailed off and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead." And I calmly said, "It's fine," but I had already lost my thought. Then I just didn't continue. At this point, the room got awkward fast. A couple of people looked uncomfortable and the meeting moved on. on. Afterwards, another coworker told me that was kind of passive-aggressive and that I embarrassed her. That wasn't really my intention, but I also didn't want to keep fighting to speak like I'm in a competition. Since then, I've done it a few more times. Not dramatically, but just stopping when I'm interrupted instead of talking louder. She seems more aware, but now the vibe is weird, and I'm worried that I'm being petty instead of mature. At the same time, I feel like I've tried being polite and it never worked. So am I the jerk for handling it this way instead of addressing it directly? Because right now I feel like I ruined pretty much all my relations at the office. No, you're not the jerk. I can't stand people like this. If I'm in a meeting or if I'm giving some kind of point and I'm trying to explain myself, and then you suddenly cut in and like completely cut me off, and this is something you consistently do, then in my opinion, it is fair game to make them feel as uncomfortable as possible. So I think stopping what you're saying and staring at them absolutely is appropriate. Like, holy crap, you really can't sit there and wait for them to stop talking so you can then step in and say whatever you want to say? Like, do you really have to dominate the entire conversation all the time? That is so obnoxious. I can't stand when people do that. So like, no, you're not the jerk at all. That kind of behavior absolutely deserves to be punished, even if some of your other coworkers incorrectly describe this as passive-aggressive, which by the way, you definitely were not. Am I the jerk for canceling my wedding and stepping away from my family after they literally put me through one of the hardest situations in planning for my sister-in-law's wedding? Because right now I feel disrespected and completely disregarded, and I seriously now just don't know what to do. Here's how it all went down, because trust me, things get really weird very fast. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I probably know the answer to like any questions I might have about this situation, but right now I think I'm just trying to prove a point. Okay, so for a bit of context, I have a twin brother that just got married to his high school sweetheart, and I was the maid of honor, and I wanted to wait to plan anything until after the wedding because the bride has no family. My dad was walking her down the aisle and dancing with her, and I wanted her to have her own princess moment. But here's the thing, she was horrible to me the entire time. I was maid of honor number 2, which I was honored to be even considered a maid of honor to begin with, but every time I tried to plan anything or do anything, the other maid of honor would shut me down. The bride literally said, "I don't want a shower or a bachelor party," and I asked a few times and then just eventually respected her wishes. Well, skip to 5 months before the wedding, and the maid of honor moves out of town, drops the bride as her friend, and drops from the wedding. I felt horrible for her, until I realized that the maid of honor had always apparently hated me, my family, and my brother, and was stopping the bride from being able to have wedding events. So I said, okay, bet. And within 48 hours, I had a bachelorette weekend at a private river house set, and was starting to plan shower ideas with my mom. It's also important to note that my sister-in-law has been financially and emotionally dependent on my family ever since we were 15 years old. My parents bought her a car, covered rent, bought her wedding dress, paid for most of the wedding. They housed her, they clothed her, they fed her, etc. Before I knew it, there were 2 new bridesmaids, and I was happy because I thought they were very nice. One of them was lovely and helped me every step of the way, and we actually became close throughout the entire wedding adventures. But the other one, she was 19 years old, moved in with my brother and sister-in-law, quit her job, didn't pay rent, broke her foot, and became a living nightmare to me and my family. She also immediately told the bride about the surprise weekend party we were planning and tried to get the bride, you know, the one that's not supposed to know anything, to actually change the weekend because she broke her foot and didn't want to not be a part of things. I was then subjected to 4 months of my sister-in-law playing both sides and lying to my brother, lying to me, lying to my mom and dad, and being literally insufferable so that we would still like her, invite her to family events, pay for her, and help her. My sister-in-law even went as far as to lie to me about who told her about the trip. She tried to lie and say that the other bridesmaid did it, just so that I wouldn't be mad at the roommate. But I just said to her, oh, please just be honest with me, I know who told you. She then tried to get me out 2 other names, but she didn't realize that I was smart enough to know that those other 2 bridesmaids had already had a falling out and blocked each other, so it would have been impossible for both of them to have told her. I then gave her one last shot and I said, look, I'm giving you one last chance. I promise that I know who told you and what really happened, so please just tell me, I won't be mad. But you know what? She simply wouldn't give in. Well, I wasn't going to go after both bridesmaids. I mean, I just got engaged myself. I don't give a crap about this. And I had so much to plan and do for her already. So I just got with the bridesmaids that weren't annoying, and we planned a shower with my mom. And we had plans to get bridesmaids there without telling her, so she couldn't ruin the surprise. But when she broke her foot, eventually my sister-in-law and brother had had enough and kicked her out a week before the shower. I had tried to make arrangements for my brother to still go get her, but he didn't want to, and she just didn't get an invite. Well, the shower comes along and I pay for a lot of it, with my mother covering the rest. I set it up, I planned games, I sit below her to hand her gifts to open, and she loved every minute of it. Well, the bridesmaids hear what happened and they got pissed. They then text me and the bridesmaids go off. So I handle the situation, she backs out of the wedding, the bride thinks that she's a jerk and hates her, but still invites her to the wedding anyways, and somehow makes me look like the jerk mean girl of the group. And it's like, okay, whatever. I'm a ride or die type of person for my girls. So I started channeling my inner Cassie and just went with the, okay, well, if you think I'm a villain, then so be it. The bachelorette starts rolling around and the bride knows about the dates, but it's okay, whatever. I get a text a week before the bachelorette trip from the bride saying, I can't wait to get baptized Sunday. It's gonna be magical. You should come only if you feel up to it. It's just going to be me and your brother, so no pressure. And it's here that I quickly realized that was literally on the weekend we planned. And I got the crew together and told her a week early, thinking, okay, she could reschedule her baptism or something like that. But of course that's not what happened. So I wake up at 5:30 in the morning on a Saturday morning and I drive 2 hours with hundreds of dollars of decorations and gifts for everyone, and I set it up with my best friend who's also a bridesmaid at the River House. For reference, the River House is owned by my best friend's parents, and her dad is also my sister-in-law's boss. I know it's complicated, but just stay with me. Now, my sister-in-law is stupid beyond reason. She drives 2 hours in the wrong direction when she has literally been there hundreds of times, and turns a 2-hour trip into a 5-hour one. And sure, this aggravated me, but what aggravated me more was when her boss told me, I can't believe she's getting baptized with your Nana tomorrow. I mean, why couldn't it wait? And I realized in that moment that she had lied to me once again and had gone behind my back. I was in a fight with my family, but both my mom and my Nana knew about the bachelorette dates, and they were upset at the bridesmaid for telling the bride about it and ruining the surprise. So it's like, okay, what am I supposed to do now? Well, I just put on a happy face and pretend that I know nothing and throw the best bachelorette trip that I could possibly think of with the amount of time I'm given. And you know what? That's exactly what I did. The bride goes to bed at 10:30, leaves at 7:30 in the morning, and texts me to drive her $1 sweet tea 2 hours back to her on my way home. I then told her boss that if you give me that sweet tea, I'm gonna shove it so far up her butt that she'll be out of work for at least a month. Her boss, his wife, my best friend, and I clean up everything, and I am literally in tears. They're trying to make me feel better, we eventually leave, and then we're on with a regular schedule. Well, the wedding starts coming up, and my older brother drops from the best man position. And yeah, I saw that coming because he's a jerk, let's be honest. And of course, just like always, I pick up the pieces. I'm still not speaking to my family, but I'm not going to be the one to ruin the wedding. If anything, I'm gonna make sure that I can make it the best night possible. The rehearsal comes and goes wonderfully. The wedding went wonderful with a few backhanded remarks to me from my sister-in-law. I give a speech that had everyone in tears. I dance the night away. I hold and carry her train when needed. I make the photographer take photos of her with the train down because he forgot to do so. And my God, it's the best night for them and I feel amazing. Well, I figured that they got married and I had been engaged for 8 months. And now it was my time to plan things. My family and I kind of made up and started getting the ball rolling, but suddenly my sister-in-law just decided that she was going to be in charge of planning everything. My bachelorette party, my engagement party, my shower, and it really felt like I couldn't do anything about it. I tried to talk to my mom about it, but she just said something like, oh, your sister-in-law was handling everything already, so you should just make her maid of honor number 2. Even though I had told my mom that after the way my sister-in-law treated me, we need to have a discussion after the wedding, and I only wanted to make her a bridesmaid because I no longer trusted her. Well, eventually I cried to my fiance, and my fiance texted my mom, and my mom immediately apologized. Now, I felt like this wasn't the end of it, so I called my maid of honor and I asked if she had any information about anything for my wedding, and she said, wait, are we planning now? I thought you wanted a minute and to do things slowly. And yeah, she's 100% right, but eventually I start to cry and I just say that I want to cancel my wedding because my parents only care about my sister-in-law and want her to be my friend, but she treats me so badly. My best friend is amazing and her parents are best friends with my parents, so she told her parents to talk to mine and reinforce the boundaries. I felt my mom understood that she was prioritizing my sister-in-law's wishes over mine for my own wedding, but of course that didn't last very long. I had plans to make cookies with my mom and Nana, and I work a lot during the holidays, so I set a Sunday up with them because I no longer had any Mondays or other days off that month. But the next thing I know, I get a text message from my sister-in-law asking if I was free or if I felt like it, if I could let her join her bridesmaid, her bridesmaid's kids, and my mom and Nana with them on their trip to DC for the day, which just so happened to be the day that I was supposed to make cookies with them. And I'm sure they forgot like they always do and feel like they just can't cancel on my sister-in-law, but they can with me. So yeah, I was completely livid and I was really done with all of this. I had gone out of my way to make my wedding dirt cheap for my parents. I had gone out of my way for my twins' wedding, and even put my own engagement on hold for 8 months to make things easier for everybody. And I wasn't even allowed to pick my wedding party without a fight. I couldn't make any wedding plans without some kind of argument. And I've been so freaking crystal clear about what I want, like literally so low maintenance, that I said, screw this. I just want to elope with my fiance and with the friends and family that I don't need to scream at or make me feel like I'm not worth anything. Literally every time we cleaned up one of her parties, she would say they're gonna save the decorations for my parties. And you know what? That really hurt. Like, is that all I'm worth? The leftover decorations that I bought for another bride? I then canceled my wedding and stopped speaking to everybody involved. And it's here that I come back to the people listening because I just want some opinions, man, because I feel so justified in walking away. Like, there are so many points I thought to myself, you just cannot make this crap up. So seriously, am I the jerk for just wanting to get married on my own terms, which led me to canceling literally everything I was planning with my family? Because right now I am very distraught and I seriously don't know what to do. Holy crap, this is some heavy stuff. Just when I think to myself, oh, this can't possibly get any worse, I'm very quickly proven wrong and it just gets way worse from there. Like, holy crap, everybody in this family is so selfish. Like, I'm just gonna say that straight up. Like, they would much rather appeal to your sister-in-law than ever make you happy in the slightest, saying they're gonna like use leftover decorations for your wedding and everything you're planning, while also just completely ignoring plans that it's like, dude, I literally made this specifically for us, and you can't even respect my time? Like, dude, this is some crazy behavior. So no, definitively, you are not the jerk for canceling your wedding. Like, I would probably stop talking to my family in general if this happened to me. This is so frustrating and so annoying. I don't blame you for being pissed off, because I know for a fact if I was in your shoes, I would feel the same way. Thanks for watching. Subscribe down below if you haven't already. And also, please subscribe to Am I the Genius? I think you're going to love what they're making over there. It's a great channel and you should definitely check it out. Everything will be linked down below in the description. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.